Welcome to Buttonwillow Raceway Park for the Cal Club SCCA Divisional races brought to you by Porterfield Brakes, our main sponsor for this weekend and for all of our live streams here. Brian Belansky with Tristan Parker, getting ready for our first race of the day. This is our Spec Racer Ford Formula F and Formula V race. Tristan, how we doing?
Doing fine, Brian. Looking forward to our first race of the day here, which is Group 2, the Spec Racer Ford. They're competitive. They're always competitive. They were competitive yesterday. We had some interesting racing going on, and I expect that we'll have some interesting racing going on here today as well from this group.
All right, well, let's get to our starting lineups. We've already started our pace lap. We've got a 30-minute race coming up here, so let's get it started.
All right, starting at the back of the grid, it is number 62, Mike Callis from North Hills, California. Next to him is number 16, Mike Moshe from Los Angeles, California. In front of that, number 18, Aaron Stein from Santa Barbara, California. And leading into that, number 71, Douglas Stewart from Northridge, California. Above him, it'll be Preston Lerner, number 43 from Burbank, California. Alongside him, number 69, Denny Fostick from Riverside, California. In front of them, number 55, Jay Rosenthal from Woodland Hills, California. Number 28, Andy Patterson is next to him from Fallbrook, California. In front of them, number 197, Mark Ballingy from Shafter, California. Next to him, number 22, Robert Edmondson from Huntington Beach, California. Leading the Spec Racer Ford group, sitting in pole position for the group, number 9, Brian Schubert from Huntington Beach, California. And then in our Formula Fords, our Formula F cars, number 8, Edward Erlinson, Burbank, California. Next to him, Eric Little from Placentia, California, and Charles Horn from Los Gatos, California. And then your overall pole sitter for the race, number 27, Stuart Patterson from Fallbrook, California.
All right, we've got 30-minute races. Our cars are working their way through their pace lap here, and we will have all the action for you today. We've only got 4 races today. We've combined a couple of races together so that we've got a little more excitement to bring to you for those races. And we will be enjoying that very much here.
Yeah, it's beautiful day for it. Not as hot as it was yesterday. Obviously, we're still relatively early here in the day, so things will heat up. But other than that, good temperature. Everybody seemed eager to get out there on the track and get going. Not as many qualifiers today, in the sense that a lot of them, I think, were taking their times from yesterday as combined times here today. So, a pretty easy start here to these races, and should be a good showing from the Spec Racer Ford category. Yesterday, they had at least one individual kind of crash out right there and get set back, but we also saw some good racing at the top of the board, and I expect those same characters, Brian Schubert, Robert Edmondson, Mark Ballingy, and Jay Rosenthal, to all be really active here today as well.
All right, we do have a split start on this race. There's our first group. That's our Formula Fs, and then everything else is in the second group. That would be our Spec Racer Fords and the lone Formula V in the race. That's Mark Edwards. So getting ready to get it going here. 30-minute races. We should see our pace car. Yep, on pit lane now. We've moved our camera a little closer to our start line today just to see how that angle works. And we have a green flag in the air. Here comes our racers right at us and past us. And not too long down the road, we will then see our next group come by, and that's our larger group of Spec Racer Fords.
Right, it is a split start, so there's going to be that gap between the two of them. Yesterday, the Formula F cars, they pretty much ran their own race quite easily, right? There's about 4 of them. Not a lot of competition. It was just a good drive for all of them, relatively spaced out. Should be seeing something similar to that, but here's our green flag at the starting line for our Spec Racer Fords, a much more competitive grouping right there, and already at the start, Brian Schubert and Robert Edmondson neck and neck as they came across the line. Brian Schubert obviously in that pole position, and he'll move in to take it there on the Sunrise turn, and they'll all fall in. Now, yesterday down on Sunrise, Brian Schubert and Robert Edmondson were going back and forth. Brian Schubert tried to get underneath him on that turn and spun out, and that set up a very unfortunate race there for the number 9 car. Mark Ballingy, too, who's overall in 3rd place, he also suffered a little bit yesterday as well. Similar situation, span out on one of the laps, nearly got caught up by the aforementioned Brian Schubert, but kept it together. Robert Edmondson, though, raced pretty straightforward yesterday, so he's one to keep an eye on. There is probably the threat car, if there is one out there on the track.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the same group of guys who we get out here on a regular basis for the most part in our Spec Racer Ford group. All these drivers are very familiar with each other. Many of them work out of the same shop. And they love coming out here and putting on a really good show. We should get them coming into our view here in just a second as they come through Riverside and then straight up at us at Phil Hill here. This is one of the two spots on the racetrack where there is some elevation. They're climbing up towards Phil Hill in this shot, and then they come back on through come back down on the other side and head out towards the Star Mazda corner.
Configuration for today is number 1A, and it's being run clockwise. So that's a good configuration. These drivers like it. It makes it so Sunrise is the turn at the end of the straightaway, which becomes a sort of passing location favorite. The only real complication in the track here today, Brian, of course, is the removal of the dog leg and the adding of the bus stop. And the bus stop we saw, it wasn't that bad yesterday, as we've seen in the past, in terms of creating some issues, but it does present a bit of a challenge for these drivers. It adds kind of some extra turns and some extra banking that they have to take into consideration, especially as they come down off the elevation of our first kind of elevated portion of the track, which is over by the Grapevine. So something to think about. Our Spec Racer Ford's coming by right there. That front group of four is starting to pull away, and that, I believe, was Brian Schubert, Robert Edmondson, Mark Ballingy, and Jay Rosenthal. So the sort of usual suspects right there, spreading out and beginning their own kind of race amongst one another.
That's right, and at the Formula Ford group at the front, Stuart Patterson just went purple with a 202.429, so he is our fast car in that group, as well as overall. Here's our Fords here coming up through Cotton Corners, and they're heading up to the second part of elevation here at our track, and that is what we call the Grapevine. We don't use turn numbers here on the broadcast because, frankly, we go in this direction, the turn numbers are backwards, and it's really confusing. So we call the corners by name going in this direction.
Mark Ballingy there went just a little off, and this is one of the things that we talk about on the bus stop. It's hard to illustrate because we can't really get a camera on it, but when they come into the sort of second turn of the bus stop, you have a real habit of going just a little off the track right there. It also happens to be incredibly dusty. So when a car does get a wheel off right there, it tends to kick up a massive cloud of dust, and which can be quite disruptive for the drivers coming behind whoever was responsible for the dust cloud. And we actually do see occasionally drivers kind of bank over to the inside or the outside to avoid those aforementioned dust clouds, and it slows them down. And that's kind of what happened to Jay Rosenthal right there when that number 197 car went off.
No changes up front, however. You still have, as you saw right there, that was Brian Schubert coming through the screen there with Edmondson and Ballingy. I think, did Rosenthal get to take a position there at that point?
I do not think he got the overlap.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He's still behind. He did have to put on his brakes just a little bit because he went straight through that dust cloud.
Right.
But, you know, it's starting to build into the rhythm that we would expect from these Spec Racer Fords, which is usually a pretty slow race in terms of them kind of waiting until they have a good opportunity to pass. We talked about this yesterday. They like to drift off one another, right? Kind of stay in the back of the draft of the car in front of them, oftentimes very close, which we do see. And they'll kind of keep that pattern going, and then they'll just look for their opportunity to sort of slingshot. And that usually doesn't happen until late in the race. One of the issues that I think Schubert had yesterday was that they tried to go for it a little early, and the opportunity was not there. The momentum had not been built up. So I imagine they're all going to be a little bit more cautious about it here today to avoid similar scenario. But, I mean, I say that Edmondson is belting here to keep up with Schubert. And again, Mark Ballingy kicks up a bunch of dust there for Jay Rosenthal to chew on as they come up out of the bus stop.
Yeah, that might be his preferred line.
I would say.
He likes to hang it out there just a little bit, and I see some dust in that area right now. So whichever car just went through there, you can see off to the left, right by our pylon. That's actually the exit of the bus stop, and we were taking a look out there. I was waiting for the Formula F cars to come through, which they just did. That's Stuart Patterson and Charles Horn, who just came through. Charles Horn just went purple for the fast lap in his group and overall with a 2-minute .544 lap.
Yeah, Charles Horner is putting on a good bit of effort here. He's in that second place spot, but he's holding on to the coattails of Stuart Patterson, less than a second, about 0.9 of one to be exact, separating the two of them at the top of the board. So that's something to keep in mind right there. Charles Horn certainly a capable driver and capable of getting around Stuart Patterson, though yesterday as the race progressed, Patterson's grouping just went farther and farther, and here's some competition for Brian Schubert. Edmondson just forcing his way up on the inside edge, and we'll see if that holds for the turn, and it does. No choice right there from Schubert but to let Edmondson by on the inside, and that should be Robert Edmondson moving to the front of the group for the Spec Racer Fords.
Yep, you can see it right there. Edmondson now at the point, and Schubert in second as they come through Sunrise and head up towards the A section. Now might be a good opportunity for Brian Schubert just to sit there and collect some laps, let the tires cool a little bit, not push out front. I was talking to him yesterday about his qualifying session. He's like, yeah, I did a great job punching a hole through the air for everybody else so they could go fast. Well, now maybe he's just sick and tired of punching a hole through the air for everybody else, and it's time for them to let him draft for a few laps, and he'll be in prime space there to be able to pounce when we get closer to the end of the race.
Say that, though, and he might be slowing down a little bit too much right there because I see them coming into the Riverside turn, and it did look like Mark Ballingy was just testing the inside edge of Schubert right there to see if he could get around him as well. It was not successful. But he knows he's got competition creeping up behind him there as well. Now Stuart Patterson coming across the line here for the Formula Fords, and he is setting his fastest lap time, 2 minutes and 2:67 on the board right there. So widening that gap ever so slightly in front of Charles Horn.
Yeah, all those Fords look like they're getting their groove on here. Their tires are coming up to optimal temperature. It was 86 degrees, I think, 83 degrees when we started this race, which is down probably 6 or 7 degrees from what we were yesterday at this time. So while the cars like the warm temperatures, the tires, they don't like them too warm. So.
Well, here come the Spec Racers across the start here. The group has shifted just slightly. Sounds like Mark Ballingy hit some unexpected struggles, perhaps down by the Star Mazda turn, went off and on, and Jay Rosenthal managed to take advantage of that and slip in behind. So now sitting about 0.384 of a second behind Brian Schubert. Brian Schubert, in turn, about 0.5 of a second behind Robert Edmondson. So a tight group of three right there. Now Mark Ballingy having to play catch-up to get back into that race. And you should get a pretty good look at it next time we get the SRFs on camera. There you go. And there's that last car. That's Mark Ballingy right there trying to get back into a fighting position after some hiccups.
There's a little action there a little further back in the Spec Racer Ford pack. That, I believe, is the group led by Denny Fostick. And then you've got just not too far behind Preston Lerner and Douglas Stewart. So pretty certain that's the group that we were seeing there as they came through. Now coming into our frame in just a second, coming up through Phil Hill should be the leaders in Spec Racer Ford.
And that was an interesting move there from one of these Spec Racers I've not seen. Took that turn out of the bus stop so tight that he actually clipped the inside edge instead of the kind of exact opposite that we've been seeing from Mark Ballingy, where he goes so wide. He came in and really tight on that. Not that it didn't affect his position at all, but it's interesting. It'll be interesting to take a look and see how it affected his speed. I'm not sure exactly who that was. I want to say it was maybe Douglas Stewart, but we'll get a better idea the next time they come around. Unfortunately, Brian, not all of these car colors are super distinctive. The most distinctive one out there right now, of course, is that number 18 car of Aaron Stein, which is in the rainbow colors. And that one is pretty easy to spot. But some of the other ones, not so simple. Here they come again. It does look like Robert Edmondson still with a hefty lead there, about zero point 0.8 of a second over Brian Schubert. Credit, though, to Mark Ballingy, who has shoved his way back up to about 0.5, 0.6, let's say, of a second behind Jay Rosenthal. So right back in the mix. That was the number 69 car of Denny Fostick, who I saw take that turn super tight.
Well, that's what happens when you hit the wrong cough button. Folks, I apologize. But last lap, this is really interesting. All the top four Spec Racer Fords hit their fastest lap of the race. Edmondson with a 2:03.6, Schubert with a 2:03.9, Jay Rosenthal with a 2:03.8, and then Mark Ballingy goes low in class with a 2:02.9. So he is trying to keep the pressure on here. And he knows if he doesn't get a little caught up to the back of this field, they're going to start to walk away from him. So,
yeah, interesting that they're all putting on the speed right there. Speaking of putting on the speed, lap number 5 from Stuart Patterson, 159.924. Great lap there from him to just continue to put the speed on. And he's trying to separate himself more and more from Charles Horn, and that gap has grown from under a second to about 3.5 seconds now as these laps have progressed. So this is very similar to what we saw out of Stuart Patterson yesterday, and I expect that it will probably continue in this vein as long as Mr. Patterson does not put a wheel out of place, which I guess is always a possibility. But an experienced driver who seems very comfortable in that Ford car, the Swift DB6, 1988. So I don't think we're going to see him really do anything too bad out there. He just keeps going faster, but only by a little bit of a little point something of a second on the last lap. Still faster, though, Brian. Still counts.
absolutely. We've got about 15, 16, 17 minutes left in this race. Our clock is not working today on my end here. I have some technical difficulties, and I apologize for that. So we'll keep you on top with the time, and if you're watching on a big enough screen, you'll see the time on the top left of the scoring tower. I usually put it up there with a bigger clock because it's easier to see, but I will continue to see if I can troubleshoot and get that thing up going. Here comes our Spec Racer Ford leaders. That is Edmondson first, and then you've got Jay Rosenthal, who has moved into second place in Spec Racer Ford, followed by Brian Schubert and then Mark Ballingy.
Well, everything running pretty much the way it should here at the moment. Nobody seems to be in a particularly difficult spot. Brian Schubert has dropped back, like you said, behind Jay Rosenthal, but on Spec Racer Ford with still 15 minutes left to go. Hardly say that group is set in stone.
That's right.
A lot of shifting tends to happen right there, so
Yeah, definitely,
we'll see what
definitely.
happens.
At the halfway point, let's do a full field rundown. You want me to do it, or do you got
I've got it. That's
All
fine.
right.
So
Sounds
let's
great.
do a quick full field rundown here. Starting at the top of the order in your first place, number 27, Stuart Patterson. In second place, number 54, Charles Horn. In third place, number 8, Edward Erlinson. In fourth, number 22, Robert Edmondson. In fifth, number 55, Jay Rosenthal. In sixth, number 9, Brian Schubert. Followed by Mark Ballingy, Denny Fostick, Preston Lerner, Douglas Stewart, Aaron Stein, Mike Moshe, Mike Callis. And that is your midway full field rundown, brought to you by the Inside the SCCA podcast here on the Racing Network.
And we are also here because of the good folks at Porterfield Brakes. They are our presenting sponsor. This is the Cal Club Divisional Races presented by Porterfield Brakes. If you need brakes or anything else, well, not anything, but lots of other things for your race car, go check out the good folks at Porterfield Brakes. You can find them at porterfield-brakes.com. They ship all over the country, so if you're watching from home and not in SoCal, or your home is not in SoCal, that's okay. They can help you out anyway. So we've got Edmondson, Rosenthal, Schubert, Ballingy, your top four. Denny Fostick, a little ways back, 21 seconds back in the top five. He's the top five. I'm going to work here to catch up with our Formula F group here up front here. next time I can find them. Because they've got a little scrap going on. It's not really a scrap. It's about a 5-second lead. But Stuart Patterson and Charles Horn are the class here of the field. Here they come into our view. There is Stuart Patterson right there. And the next car by will be Charles Horn. Here he is. Those Fords are doing their own thing. And this is the nice part about the split start is that they got their own race, basically. And if the split start's done right, they shouldn't get into each other's way here until right at the end of the race. So
You would hope so, Brian. That's usually kind of the goal, right? Is
Yep.
that they stay as separated as possible until the bitter end. Brian Schubert and Jay Rosenthal both going, I'd say, pretty fast here overall, setting their fastest lap times on lap number 7. We'll see if they keep that pacing up come now lap number 8. We should be seeing them come by relatively soon, but of course, the Formula F cars should be passing by here as well. Best lap still remains Stuart Patterson with that 159, and here you go. Robert Edmondson across. He'll set his fastest lap time. Brian Schubert picking up speed as well. Same cannot be said for Jay Rosenthal, but the gap is widening right there. As Mark Ballingy has kind of tucked in behind Brian Schubert, and those two trying to play off each other a little bit here to catch up to the first and second place.
Yeah, the best thing they can do is team up and work together. If they do that, they can hunt down Rosenthal and Edmondson without too much trouble and literally drive right past them because both those cars by themselves are kind of sitting ducks out there. But that requires the 9 car and the 197 car to kind of do their thing together. And if that works, we'll see. With about 12 minutes left in this race, plenty of time for them to get together and make this thing happen. But they do have to work together because they are slowly getting ready to lose the draft of the cars in front of them. So we've got 4 races today. We've cut one race down, actually combined 2 of the groups together. So our last group of the day, which is our GT and Big Bore group, there's just a couple of cars in that race today. So we're going to bump them up to race with group number 3 today. Basically, all of our closed wheel cars are going to be in one race group, and that should at least give us a nice larger group of cars to talk about out there, which is always good for the announcers.
Yeah, definitely to our benefit, I would say. Being able to watch them do that together as a group.
See, sometimes I get talking, Tristan, and then I forget to press the buttons, and I don't know where the cars are, and I got lucky this time. There's our Spec Racer Ford leaders. Coming through the S's and heading up towards the final corner before the main straight.
Well, there's Edmondson and Rosenthal continuing to hold that lead spot. Schubert and Ballingy both chasing, but there's about a 2.3 second gap between Schubert and Rosenthal. So definitely some work cut out right there for the number 55 car to catch up with the number 9 car to catch up with the number 55 car of Rosenthal and put himself into second place overall. And then, of course, he's got to try and catch Edmondson on the backside of that. So a lot of work for those two. That said, still about 10 minutes left in the race, so I'd say plenty of time for both of them to kind of make their mark here, as it were, as this continues to develop. And now a bit of a spread actually happening. Schubert pushing ahead of Ballingy, trying to catch up on the tail end of Rosenthal, but that gap looks wider right there as they come down through the bus stop.
Stuart Patterson, Charles Horn, still doing their thing at the front of the Formula F group. Patterson's opened up about a 9-second lead, and he's in a different class, so that's the FFTS class. They have a spec tire as opposed to the Formula F class, and they can use any tire, obviously, that fits the specification for the class. But they're not limited to using the exact same tire as the other cars. That's the difference between our FF and our FFTS group. That is the main difference anyway. And then you've got a little ways back, even more in that Formula F group, is Edward Erlinson. He's about 20 seconds back from the third place car, but that's your top three cars in FF, and our top three for the podium for the overall as well.
Correct, and they should maintain that position given the split start throughout the rest of this race. Edmondson coming across the line right now for the Spec Racer Fords. Rosenthal is still tucked in there. Brian Schubert down to 3.1 second gap, or I should say up to a 3.1 second gap with Jay Rosenthal. Can't quite seem to shave it off. And Mark Ballingy still very much trying to overtake right there. Came across the line with a .162 gap. So chasing Brian Schubert, who is in turn chasing Jay Rosenthal. Jay Rosenthal, for what it's worth, about a second and a half behind Robert Edmondson. So spaced out a little bit, and we'll see what the Spec Racers can do. It's going to be all eyes on Ballingy and Schubert there for that third slot battle, and to also see if they're able to put on enough speed where they can actually get past Jay Rosenthal or possibly even Edmondson. And this is, of course, all presupposing that everything goes clean for the next 8 minutes or so.
As you can see there, our Spec Racer our Formula 4F leader, Stuart Patterson, starting to get into some of the back markers in the Spec Racer Ford field. He just was able to dispatch one of them without any problems right on the main straight. But he'll now starting to run into a couple of cars here, the tail end of the Spec Racer Ford race, and he should have no problems with the back end of that field, and they'll just keep doing what they do there.
Yeah, the Spec Racers are relatively responsible about shifting out of the way, right? Like, they know what's up. So.
Well, they do, although they're so used to having a race onto themselves that they'll have to just be real cognizant of the fact that there's other cars with them. And what's also kind of interesting with the Spec Racer Fords and the Formula Fs, and one reason why they don't do this on a more regular basis, is that it's kind of hard to see those lower cars behind the Spec Racer Ford.
Right.
If they're tucked in right behind you, they are really, really tough to see. So the Formula Fs, I'm sure, are aware of that and won't stay tucked in right behind very often so that they are able to be seen and there aren't any issues. It looks to me right now, Tristan, that the big battle right now is going to be for third place in the Spec Racer Ford podium. Mark Ballingy is kind of acting like he's the second place car racing for first there, and I think now with 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes to go here, he's just biding his time until the last 2 or 3 laps where he's going to be able to try to go for it. And I'm sure that's what Brian Schubert is thinking as he's trying to pull away and not really being successful in that at all.
Yeah, he's just not able to. I think the idea of making up the gap on Jay Rosenthal is getting less and less likely as time goes by here. So it does kind of focus to more of a defensive mindset here for Brian Schubert, because you can tell just by the way that he's driving that Mark Ballingy really does want to kind of execute that pass. He's looked now like he's going to try it multiple times. He did during the straight heading down towards Sunrise. He does look at again there as they go through the Riverside turn. So, yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think it's probably a true fight for third place, as both Robert Edmondson and Jay Rosenthal seem relatively comfortable with the distance they've opened up.
Yeah, they have, and Rosenthal's just far enough back from Edmondson where it's very unlikely that without a hiccup from the 22 car, it's a lot harder to gap 1.3 seconds without help in Spec Racer Ford than it should seem to be. But these cars are so evenly matched, and the driver's so evenly matched that 1.3 seconds is kind of a good lead in this group. So, and it's kind of the same distance between Rosenthal and Schubert at 3 seconds. So I think the battle here is definitely going to be Schubert and Ballingy, and they can put on a good show here in the final 2.5 laps or so.
They could indeed put on a good show, and they'll come through again. Once more, Ballingy tries to shift towards the inside of the Sunrise turn to find a way around Schubert, but the way is blocked right there. Rosenthal continuing to just kind of run his race relatively free of the hassle of the drivers coming up behind him. At the top of the order, I don't think there's much really of note. Stuart Patterson just continues blazing a trail to glory. Charles Horn is now a full 11.5 seconds behind. So not much to be done in that regard. So just keeping an eye on those two yellow cars down in the Spec Racer category. We'll see if Brian Schubert can hold on to that third place spot here despite the slings and arrows of Mark Ballingy behind him.
Well, and the one thing to consider with Ballingy, and he may be testing the waters a little bit to see what's going on. But the other thing is, with the temperatures this weekend, if he stays tucked up right behind Schubert for too many laps and too long, his car, he can watch the temperature gauge go up in that car. So he might be sticking his nose out at those areas, not really necessarily to think about making a pass, but just to get some clean air up into that radiator and cool that car down so that he does have the horses he needs at the end of this race. Worst thing to do right now would be to overheat that car.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I would hate to see him kind of lose the momentum there because he's not taking those precautions to keep the car, in a reasonable operating temperature. And certainly that could be an issue here for Mark Ballingy because, again, every time I've seen him now come down through the turns in front of us through the bus stop, he does seem to be booking it. I mean, he is putting on a lot of speed, and I think you'll see that there on your camera as well. A little hard to tell who's who right there, but again, the same principle applies. He's chasing. He wants that spot. He really genuinely wants to overtake Brian Schubert, probably on this straight heading down towards Sunrise, and he'll sort of motion for it again, but he just does not want to commit to the actual pass attempt. So they'll just keep going around and around and around. But, I mean, if Mark Ballingy's going to do it, he has to do it soon. He's running out of road.
I agree. I, though, would wait till the last lap because he knows that if he can make a pass going into the first corner, that Brian can do it the next lap too. So some of this is going to be a bit of strategery. We've got our white flag out on the main straight here for Stuart Patterson as he comes by. This will be his final start to 3.1 miles to the big trophy and the checkered flag. He's going to take us to the finish here. That means that our Spec Racer Forward group has got a lap and a half to go, and they are going to be working it hard now, especially that number 197 car, Mark Ballingy, is going to have to take a big swing at Brian Schubert if he thinks he's going to be able to get into the third spot on the podium there.
Right, and that's exactly what Mark Ballingy will be aiming to do next time they come around here, and we'll see if the white flag coming out speeds that process significantly or whether he'll try and take him maybe on the back half of the track. That'll be what is worth watching there for these teams.
All right, we'll be able to see those cars coming into our view here in just a second as they head through Star Mazda way off there in the distance. You can see the cars now coming in through the S's. That is your first place car, Robert Edmondson in Spec Racer Ford, followed by Jay Rosenthal. Now that duo in yellow, it is in third place right now, Schubert and then Ballingy. I think the best place for this pass, if Ballingy is going to be able to make it, it's going to be at the end of the main straight here. And it's where he's been poking a nose out either to get air or to test the waters. And this will be an opportunity to try it one more time. He's tucked right under there. Is he going to pop out here and try to make that pass this time by?
No.
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 No, of course not.
No. We'll keep watching again. We'll keep watching as they go up to the elevation of the Grapevine and back down. It could be potential that maybe coming out of the bus stop heading into the Riverside turn is where we could see that coming. I definitely think that Mark Ballingy has been sort of scouted that out. There comes our winner for the FF division across the line. Stuart Patterson well ahead of everyone else and well happy on his own with a 2-minute 3:07 last lap right there. And then we'll go back to our Spec Racer Ford action here. Brian Schubert widening up that gap just a little bit. Both of them going very fast coming down into the bus stop. Mark Ballingy, though, the lion's share of the speed between the two of them, trying to just apply as much speed as possible heading into the Riverside turn.
The next best and pretty last best passing opportunity here for Mark Ballingy is going to be going into the Star Mazda corner. That is the hard braking zone into a right-hander that goes on to our little middle mini straight there, going into the last couple of corners, and he will have an opportunity there. And that really is the last good passing zone here. You can maybe try to throw it in there at Sunset, but I don't see a lot of successful passes coming through there very often.
No, you don't see a lot of successful passes, and the checkered flag is out and ready to be waved here for, I believe, Edmondson when we see him step into the sight line. And sure enough, there's a good long wave of the checker.
And here he comes across the line. That is Robert Edmondson, followed by Jay Rosenthal. And who's going to come in third? It looks like it's going to be Brian Schubert.
No, actually.
Oh, no. Mark Ballingy got him at the end. That's the KG veteran there making the move on the last lap.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. I think it's time we can do our full field rundown and take a break before our next group.
All right, starting with your overall race winner and the winner of the Formula Ford TS category, Stuart Patterson. In second place, and the winner of the FF, it is Charles Horn. In third place, Edward Erlinson. In fourth, Robert Edmondson, your overall winner for the Spec Racer Fords. In second in the Spec Racer Fords is number 55, Jay Rosenthal. And then in third in the SRF 3s, that'll be Mark Ballingy. After that, Brian Schubert, Denny Fostick, Preston Lerner, Douglas Stewart, Aaron Stein, Mike Moshe, and Mike Callis.
All right, that's going to do it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have our groups 2 and 6 races combined. So that's going to be our production cars, our B-Spec cars, all of our touring cars, all of our IT cars, basically all of our closed wheel cars are going to come out here in our next race. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're ready for our second race of 4 this afternoon. This is all of our production cars, B-Spec, all of our IT cars, our GT cars, our touring cars as well. I think we may even have a Spec Corvette snuck in there somewhere. Brian Belansky here with Tristan Parker, and we are doing our thing, and it's time for our starting order.
Right, not a lot of cars in this, and not a lot of cars on our sheet due to that combine. I think there are more out there that are listed on here because these are the Sunday qualifying times, but I'll give it really quick. Jack McKeggum, Dale Shoemaker, Richard James. And then we should be seeing a few more names pop up on the
I
first.
think if we grab our Group 6 rundown, that will be the other one.
This is 3 and 6.
Oh, it is. Okay, yeah, there's definitely more cars out there than that.
I just checked at the top, and it's just 3 and 6. But I think it is only their Sunday qualifying time, so
Got
we
it.
know that there are some more bodies out there because there are a total of,
I see about
I want to say
5 or 6.
5 or
yeah.
6? Yeah, 6. We got to count. So we'll see a couple more names out there when they come around the next time. That's just all the information we have at the moment.
Yeah, I think I feel a little bit like the heat may have gotten the best of some folks this weekend because our numbers tend to go down a little bit from Saturday to Sunday just by attrition. But I think this was also a little bit of a heat-related attrition. Here comes our pace car up through Phil Hill with the field in tow. Well, that car at the back is going really slow.
They're taking their time.
Yeah. This is the slow pace lap.
Indeed.
Oh. If you're watching at home, put it in the chat. Say hi. We'd love to have you talking to us here, and I'll pull that up here just in case we get anybody. I love it when I pull up the live stream on YouTube. Our channel is right next to the IndyCar channel.
There you go.
And I can exactly see why you would choose our channel.
Of course.
Oops. Wrong button. All right, here they come down looking for a green flag. Oh, and a wave off of the start. It appears that the starter was not real happy with the one of the cars. Looked like it started to go and accelerate before the green flag had fallen. And I should plug in my radio so I can hear what the problem was. And I didn't do that, so we'll get that in a minute. But so the way this starts, when there's a wave off.
Oh, I've got it. Okay, sorry, Brian.
Yeah?
I'll tell you what happened.
Sure.
One of the second row had just one car. The front car dropped to the back of the pack. Everybody was jumbled and out of order. Right?
Oh, okay. So when that front car dropped to the back, the cars in front didn't know exactly what to do there. So,
not.
that'll happen, unfortunately. Oop. But yeah. Anyway, so what happens when we wave off a start like that is the race actually starts. So this first lap is considered basically a full course caution lap. And then we will keep an eye on what's going on here for the rest of this lap, and so this lap will count. The clock has started, and which of course I didn't put up here, so I will get the clock caught up now that our graphics are back up and working here. I will remember to do that here.
We still only have, and I'm still slightly confused here, Brian, but we still only have 4 cars listed on our timing here.
Yeah.
There are definitely 6 cars out there, so it's all a little wonky here at the moment, and that is just how it is. So they're coming back around for another lap, and hopefully we'll be able to keep everyone in their position.
That's
and they
right.
can just get started here.
Well, and the good news is we'll be able to figure this out because there's only 6 cars out there. So I think we'll be able to pick out some car numbers and match them up with yesterday's grid sheets, and hopefully we can sort this out. And I'm sure the timing and scoring folks are working feverishly to get it going as well for us. So we will do the best we can to keep everybody as informed as possible.
That is the sincere hope.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that I'll do the best I can, and I know you will.
I
So
know.
that's really all we can control here.
We're giving our full effort up here.
That's right. That's right. I think this is our first full course caution of the weekend, right?
It is. Yes,
That's
been a
pretty awesome.
relatively clean weekend, especially looking at our previous races over the last couple of months that were a little harem-scarum at times, just because the track condition had been so poor.
Exactly.
With weather being what it was, so a nice clean weekend here at Buttonwillow, and yeah, their first full course caution, and for a relatively not serious issue as well, which I appreciate. So hopefully they'll all come through 2x2 as they should be here on this next start, and the race will get underway.
And if you look at our pylon, we have 6 cars on the pylon now. So
there you go.
All right, here they come back onto the main straight, and the green flag already out. Not wasting any time getting these cars going, and we've got a car number 49 coming up through the field very quickly. I believe that is Paul Gasson going right to the front, and that's the ITE car. That car should be significantly faster than the spec Miatas in the front, or the Miatas that were in the front, the STL cars. So Gasson should be able to kind of start to walk away here and get out of the way of the spec Miata cars, and he is moving right through there. I'm sure that the 3-minute and 29-second purple lap at the top, that's going to get better here pretty quickly.
Considering how fast he just came by, I would say so.
Exactly.
Very diverse group, by the way, if you were wondering, and you can see there on your pylon, ITE, STL, STU, STL, T4, T2. Absolute hodgepodge mishmash, these 6 cars out there. Just everybody's getting a podium spot per the way things work around here, but I guess there's still some pride in being the number 1 overall car. And then Paul Gasson, it looks like, has actually dropped back just a little bit. Richard James might have actually gone back into the first place overall. We see them come down here through the bus stop. We can kind of get an eye on them. They head into Riverside. They'll head towards Phil Hill. Might be able to determine when we see them here on the camera passing Phil Hill exactly how the setup has shifted.
I'm not talking as much as I might normally because I'm trying to get our clock started here.
The infamous clock is
yes,
fighting back.
Well, I think, knock on wood, I've solved my technical problems here, and
I wasn't talking too much because I didn't feel there was an awful lot to say. Because there's not an awful lot to say. I mean, they're running their race out there. There comes the clock popping up in the top of your screen. But these guys are running their race and pretty much just going about their business out there on the track. And, I mean, there's not, obviously there's a little bit of competition here amongst them, but nothing I would say is horrifically necessary. And sure enough, Paul Gasson, despite kind of blazing his trail there at the beginning, he did drop back behind Richard James. Richard James now takes that top spot with the fastest lap time now of the true first proper lap. And that's a 2-minute 20.287 right there under his name. Everybody, of course, speeding up after that first lap. Paul Gasson, who is in that ITE, looks like he's trying to chase a little bit. He's about 0.8 of a second behind Richard James.
And here are your cars coming at us at Cotton Corners here. There's James out front, followed by Gasson. That third car there is Dale Shoemaker. Now coming up through the distance there, we've got Norm Benson. He is this black car here. Next car by should be David Zink. And Jack McKecham would be the next car by, which I don't see at the moment. So we'll look out for him in just a minute.
We'll wait and see. Coming around eventually. All these guys, I think, are still finding their tires a little bit out there, right? Obviously, starting on the bit of the delayed start makes it a little more harem scarum, a little more awkward for the crew. Oh, looks like there's still some discussion about exactly what happened on that starting lap that was sort of temporarily aborted, but nothing too bad happening right now among the drivers out there. Everybody, again, they seem pretty happy with just running their race, and you see them coming now through the camera here by Phil Hill, not setting blistering speeds, but not requiring blistering speeds. Just requiring a good, solid run. That's all they really need right here. They don't have to make this crazy if they don't want to.
Oh, make it crazy.
For us.
Make it crazy, please. No, I mean, I'm just joking. Really, I am. And here comes... Where is everybody? There we go. Here comes our leaders. Richard James across the line first, followed by Paul Gasson.
Paul Gasson now with the fastest lap under his belt, so catching up there by 0.749 of a second behind Richard James.
Well, and Richard James had gone purple for about 3/1000ths of a second, because right after going purple, like 3/1000, all of a sudden Paul Gasson went purple. I don't even know that he was purple long enough for it to show up purple.
Very briefly, I think. Very briefly. Like a split second, obviously.
My brain doesn't work that fast.
Obviously a split second. But
Yes.
taking a look, too, by the way, we were saying earlier during our Group 2 broadcast, it is a lovely day. Not going to be as hot as it was yesterday. Yesterday, we clocked up to about 95. The high today is supposed to be around 86. We're about 81 degrees out there on the track right now. Admittedly, Brian, by the time that we're getting to wrapping up here today, I think our last group is going around 2:55, and that's the track event. So our last proper race is at 2:15. We're probably not actually going to hit peak temperatures like we did yesterday, which is nice for the drivers because it's not going to be quite as blistering as it was. Makes it easier on the cars, obviously makes it easier on them as well.
What is this track event you speak of?
Oh, that is a good thing. We didn't actually advertise that yesterday. We forgot to mention that. It is an ability you pay an entry fee, and you can bring your car as long as it meets certain standards. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you can bring your car out to the track and have it go around it for a 20-minute session. And it's a good way to experience all the thrills of being in a race car from the comfort of your own vehicle right there. And it's good fun.
Yeah, so the certain standards are quite I won't say low, but basically you just have to have. There's a couple of cars that are tip over risk, so we don't let those cars go out. But pretty much any street car out there with a helmet, and we make sure that all of the brakes work fine and everything. We do a little technical inspection, and you can go on out and drive your car without the risk of getting a ticket from Mr. CHP. And Ponch and Gine are not here. There is Richard James, by the way, going purple. This time he gets to keep it for a lap at least with a 2:17.6. So that's a good time for him. But it's a real good chance to get out there and kind of put your toe in the water to see if being on the track is fun. Yeah.
It's really fun to see all the variety of cars that are on display doing it. We usually have a decent number of participants out there. They get a couple of goes around, and it's just fun to see people enjoying the racetrack in any capacity. Just a slightly different one.
Yeah. Today we had a car out there with it's a tube frame, some kind of car. I couldn't even tell what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on display last night. I saw it, and it's an interesting looking vehicle.
Yeah.
I must admit.
So come on out and enjoy. If you want to find out more information about that, you can go to, and I'm going to pull up a little thingy here. You can go to calclub.com and learn more about our track events. There are many of our race weekends out here. And if you are not from our area, there are other regions that do similar things. You can find your local region at SCCA.com.
Of course, always an encouragement if you're interested at all in volunteering out here at the racetrack or just participating in any Cal Club or SCCA event. You can find all the information there on those respective websites. Always looking for more volunteers out here at the track. Always a good time. It's fun. One weekend a month, barring some months in the summer, we'll be taking a break because it's just too dang hot out here. But one weekend a month, it's a good excuse to get away and come hang out and watch some cars go fast.
It is, and you can come here and join us at Cal Club, and like I always like to say, if you're in some other part of the United States, even Alaska and Hawaii have events, go to scca.com and find your local region there. So
it's cool. I guess I should have expected that Hawaii would have it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Good
times.
Yeah, I bet. No, 2-1 black, by the way. That'll be Jack McKechum, who did have, I believe, some mechanical troubles yesterday, has had to take another pit stop here today. So that's a little frustrating there for the 2-1 car.
Yeah, here comes our leaders right back by us now on the main straight. Richard James still in front. Paul Gasson's about 9/10 of a second back, as you can see right there. Next car by is Dale Schumacher. He will be coming into your view at the moment. There we go.
Schumacher.
Schumacher. You say potato, I say potato. Let's call the whole thing off.
It's just the Schumacher name thing. We don't want to get sued. We're using it out of turn.
Yeah.
We'll have him up here beating us up. I'm not sure who I'm referring to in that sentence, to be honest.
Exactly.
It is famous Dale, after all.
Famous Dale
He's
Schumacher.
got it on his car, so you know it's legit.
I got to get Dale to come up and tell us the story behind.
There is a story.
Did he just name himself?
Oh,
Hey,
there
folks,
is a
I'm
story.
famous Dale.
I met him. We were having dinner. He joined us for dinner one night at one of the many fine establishments here in Buttonwillow, by which I mean the one that everybody goes to, which I won't name, but it's out there.
And that's not to disparage the other establishments in Buttonwillow, because there really aren't any.
There really aren't.
Yeah,
so there's like 3 restaurants. So we were at that fine establishment, and famous Dale did tell me the story. It had something to do with his career and the kind of people he's works with. So
nice.
You'll have to get him up here to explain sometime. But yeah, I've given him the courtesy of addressing him by the
proper name,
the name that he admires, which is famous Dale. Watching the track out there, obviously, Richard James is putting on a bit of a good show. He got a 2:17.649, so he seems quite comfortable with the race that he is running. Paul Gasson, of course, still eating at the heels a little bit right there, but again, no desire, I think, really to be ultra competitive here among these cars, so I don't know if we're ever going to see Gasson really put the speed on James per se. We could, though. It's not outside the realm of possibility, and certainly it has happened before. Now, this race is combined, so we are cutting down our races today by 1, which means that after this race, we have 2 more. Group 4 will be coming up at 1:25, and then we'll be taking a short break, and we'll have group number 5 at 2:15. And I would encourage very much you to stick around for those broadcasts. Group number 4 is our F3, is our Formula cars. That was a big group yesterday. It's a big group today. Going to be very interesting. We had a great time with that race yesterday, Brian. And then, of course, our last race of the day is the Spagnatas, all 14 of them. And they are always a good time. So this is promising to be a very enjoyable day of racing. By the way, it does look like Jack McKechum, unfortunately, behind the wall there. So that'll be the end of the second STL car in the one of 2 STL cars there. Has not had a very good weekend, poor Jack McKechum, but that's just the way it goes sometimes.
And on that last lap, Richard James, Paul Gasson, Norm Benson all turned their fast laps of the race. Richard James bringing it down another few tenths to a 2:17.4. So really cool to see him out there doing all that. I was so enthralled with your story about Jack McEachern that I lost our leaders. Here we go. Oh, and of course I go to a camera that breaks up when I get there. It is just my luck today.
Well, we are halfway through the race, so we'll go ahead and bring you a full field rundown brought to you by the Inside the SCCA podcast here on the Racing Network. Starting at the top of the order, your overall race leader and the leader in the STL category, number 191, Richard James. Behind him, number 49, Paul Gasson.
Behind him, number 52, Famous Dale Shoemaker. In fourth place, number 43, Norm Benson. And then in fifth, number 98, David Zink, rounding the group out right there. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, whatever it takes here on the Racing Network. Brian's got a lot of good content. Don't forget to check out the Inside the SCCA podcast. You're offering a new podcast now as well here on the channel.
Yes, the Driven to Compete podcast with Carrie Roos is the host, and a really good guy, SCCA racer from one of the Carolina regions, either Central Carolina or I don't know, but anyway, one of those Carolina regions. And he talks with racers and people involved with racing, and we're going to have his podcast Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So we'll have a fresh podcast every weekday on the Racing Wire Podcast Network.
Well, that's a interesting topic of conversation, to be sure, and should be a fun show to watch. And he's putting them out at a rapid clip, so
Yes.
there's a lot of content there to go through. I'm looking forward to taking a look. I got to put some. I'm looking forward to putting something together. I don't know what it's going to be. I'll put something together. We'll get it out there. We'll boost more content.
That's right. Content is king, people. Content is king.
But yeah, definitely check it all out. It is generally all really good content.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
worth watching, worth listening to.
I'm a little biased, maybe, but I think
You are a
so.
little biased. Yeah, that's okay. And plus, you've been doing a lot of coverage for a lot of stuff. So you're getting in on it all as well. And then, of course, you've got your wonderful Buttonwillow race days here as well.
Yep. We enjoy it all. We like being at the racetrack. We like talking about cars. And that is what we do. At least it's what I do.
It is what you do.
It is.
It is very much what you do. You've been all over the place.
I'm living the dream,
You're
Tristan.
living the
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Literally.
Yeah, you
Not
are.
the sarcastic version
No.
of living the
I
dream.
know you are.
I am legit living the dream.
Yeah, it's fun to watch, so I must admit. But again, too, if you're interested in being a part of all of this, you can volunteer. We're also looking for sponsors, always trying to upgrade the quality of these broadcasts. Obviously, we've added cameras. We're working very hard to get that all established, or I should say you're working very hard to get it all established. And soon, sometime in the near future, out here at Buttonwillow, we'll have the new track.
Yes.
Which will be available, and that's going to be really exciting to get to broadcast some races from there. Hopefully by the end of this year, after our summer break, we'll be able to be back in for October and November, and we'll get one of those two races over there at the new track.
That is the plan. There's still no definite timetable on that, but we will keep you posted. As you can see, Richard James has opened up a 2.8 second lead over second place Paul Gasson. So, and with about 11 minutes left to go here, and keep in mind the clock at the top there in the red is not the official race time. So it may be off by a few seconds, especially with our aborted start here. But it's fairly close. So.
Fairly close.
Anyway, so
10 minutes left.
10 minutes to go. Our next race up is our Wings and Things group, so I look forward to that. That is usually my favorite race group of the weekend. Our fast formula cars. They are up next, and our prototypes. So we call it Wings and Things, and that is coming up in about 15 minutes here. So do not miss that.
It's interesting to see how these different cars handle these lines in their classes and what have you, especially with the addition of the bus stop. Some drivers really do take it quite wide, and we'll see that probably with the Spec Miatas. They're very much into taking that turn wide down there. This class, they've all been a little bit more kind of curtailed on this. By the way, sounds like David Zink in the T4, the only T4 car out there, is taking a pit stop, possibly going behind the wall. So his race day might be over for David Zink, which is fair. I mean, he's done 20 minutes. He doesn't have to keep going if he doesn't want to.
Right.
They all get their podium award because they're all in the category of their own, essentially, at this point in time. So really, once you hit that halfway mark, Brian, you can put her in. You don't have to keep pounding it out there.
That is right. So Good time to save the car, save the tires. Come on back and do it again next time.
That is actually a very valid point, saving the tires.
Oh yeah, tires are
Yeah,
expensive.
tires are expensive, and a lot of this is a consistent thing, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit. I think the Spec Miata group has been discussing tires, so we'll probably be talking about that a little bit when they get up there. But yeah, for a lot of these guys, there's a severe motivation to not burn through tires. They got to keep them multiple races on those bad boys. So
That's right.
if it's hot out there on the track and you want to come in and spare your tires a little bit of effort, sure, more power to you. Often something we see with the more, I don't want to call them obscure, but like the more unique cars as well. For example, the Glam Drink Formula V that we sometimes see out here often pits early, just because you don't want to burn through your car if you don't have to.
That's right. That's right. So, and some of these drivers have so many laps around here that they know what they're doing. They don't need the extra track time
True.
to find their path here. Other drivers just starting out, they're going to take every single lap right to the finish line because it's that important for the learning. So,
Go ahead.
I don't know if you guys all remember if you were around for our Super Tour event here, but if you look at this section of the racetrack, this is why we had to postpone the start of those races, because what you see here was not a racetrack at the time. It was flush out. It was so wet, it was underwater, and it was all the way from the berm on the right across the track. And that is the section here that was washed out. But we're all dry here now, having a good time with it. But that was what we were seeing and why we had to switch to the West Coast, which is the part of the track we're looking at right now. So, yeah. If you want to hear about that event, you should listen to the podcast that we did on the Inside the SCCA podcast with Kevin Coulter and Cal Club's race director, Mark Smith. We talked about how everything happened and gotten through, and we switched the track around in short notice, which was remarkable. That in the course of about 2 hours, it went from one racetrack to another racetrack.
Yep.
So it was really kind of cool.
Well, for what it's worth, David Zink did not go behind the wall. He was just in the pits. Apparently, they were having some sort of issue with his tires, funny enough, where they weren't sure how they were running. They felt that they were running, quote, weird.
Weird.
So they checked the pressure and made sure everything was okay. They didn't want him losing a tire out there or something. Sounds like everything was fine, so he's actually back on the track and will finish out the time here, which is about 6 minutes, give or take. Brian, your timer is pretty close to spot on this time, so congratulations to you. It's
even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
Yeah, fair enough. I always say even a broken clock is right twice
a day. Yep.
Yeah, that's my go-to. But blind squirrel is also good. I quite like that. I've also heard even a flying squirrel is right twice a day. So I don't know. I think that was the portmanteau of those two.
I used to go watch the Richmond Flying Squirrels baseball team.
Oh yeah. Oh, minor league
baseball team. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I've had some fun at minor league baseball games. Central Valley has a couple of very entertaining minor league baseball teams,
cool.
So I'll tell you about it sometime. But watching here as it goes, Richard James, he's just having a nice drive out there. So is Paul Gasson, who's coming past the tower right now in the distance.
In the distance. I'm not going to sing.
over in the bus stop, and there's Dale Schumacher following as well. Is worth pointing out the track this weekend quite long. I think one of the longest configurations we actually have available here at Buttonwillow.
I believe it is the longest possible configuration at Willow Springs. We've added all the doodads.
Yeah, it's 3.1 miles, so it's quite a bit of road to cover for these drivers. Which when you combine that with these 30-minute races, makes this actually a bit of a grueling weekend,
especially with the heat.
With the heat as well. I mean, I was talking to Brian Schubert last night, and he was wiped after his race there. And, you've got your qualifying and your practices as well. So a lot of track time for these guys, which is another reason why it's not always necessarily surprising that some of them will come in early if given the option. These guys, though, look all pretty dedicated to finishing this one out. So like to see that as well in and of its way, a little stick-to-itiveness. here. 191 coming across the line, and Richard James has tapered off a bit on his times. I don't think he quite feels the need to blaze it as much as he had been. That said, Paul Gasson going pretty dang fast on that last lap. 2:15.485.
Wow.
So he's just going fast.
Well, I think he sees the carrot at the end of the stick here, and if Richard James is taking it a little easy on these last few laps, and he thinks he might be able to catch him off guard, then he's gonna see how far that little skinny pedal can get pushed through the floorboard, and try to get to the front here as quick as possible. That gap down to 9.8 seconds here, and let's hope. I mean, let's not hope, but for Richard James' sake, let's hope he's just taking it easy. And if he sees the gap getting really close, he can go a little bit faster for the last lap and a half here. We should get our white flag this time by, is my guess, and there'll be one to go here.
Indeed, I do think we're coming up on our last lap, and I think I do see our starter unsheathing the white flag there and preparing it to wave. That means we'll have one lap left in the race here for Richard James to just bring himself around and call it a day. And then we'll take a brief sort of 5-minute break, and we'll be back with group number 4. So, and then we'll only have 2 races left to go.
2 races to go, and then we'll come back here in October for our next race weekend.
Right.
And I will get a little graphic put up for that to show you at the end here. But we take a break for the summer because it's too stinking hot out here to race. And we come back in October for our final 2 races of the year, one in October and then one first week in November. And we'll have all that coverage here, right here on the Racing Network. And, of course, the Cal Club SCCA Divisional races are brought to us by Porterfield Racing Brakes, Porterfield-brakes.com.
All right, here comes Richard James. Should be passing by soon. White flag being gently waved right there to let him know.
And there he goes, under the flag. And he is now, I would guess, about 2 minutes and 15 seconds from being an overall winner, a class winner. Let's just call him a winner, chicken dinner. Yeah, I know. That's cliche.
You can call him all that, honestly.
That's right. He's all that and a bucket of wings. So
They will all ascend the podium.
exactly.
Good for them.
Exactly.
It's all for fun out here anyway. Pride, let's say.
Yeah, we're having a good old time. Our next race up, Formula Atlantics. I don't think we have any Atlantics here this weekend, but we definitely have some F3 and F4 cars, a couple of FX cars. I think there's a Prototype 2 car. This is if everybody who was here yesterday shows up today. And that will be our next race, our fastest race, cars of the weekend. They're still going to go 30 minutes.
Yeah, they're not limited by laps this time.
Correct.
So it'll be
Fun to see how much they can get done, honestly,
That's right.
in the time frame.
Here comes Richard James one more time up through Phil Hill. It is the west side of the racetrack. Here he comes into our view here for the final time. And then off in the distance, you've got Paul Gasson. And then they come back into our view here. That's as they come off the hill from the Phil Hill. Phil Hill's a little bit to the left of our pylon there. And then way out in the distance, that is the Star Mazda corner that we're using this weekend. And then they come through there, hit the S's, and they'll come right into our view here pretty clearly.
Any minute now.
There he is. And look at how close Paul Gasson is.
He made a good time, honestly. There was about an 11-second gap.
And we should see that checkered flag get displayed here right now. There he is, your race winner. Richard James will take the win, followed by Paul Gasson. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the full field rundown here. Next on by should be Dale Shoemaker, famous Dale Shoemaker. Then Norm Benson. David Zink will finish 5th. And then Jack McEachern, who was not able to complete half distance because he had some car issues, He will finish 6th, but he won't be considered a finisher because he didn't get to halfway. And there we have it. That's going to do it for our Groups 3 and 6 race, all combined today. If you stay with us in just a few minutes, we're going to get our Wings and Things Formula Cars. That's up next. You are watching the Racing Network. These are the Cal Club SCCA Divisional races brought to you by Porterfield Racing Brakes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Buttonwillow Raceway Park. I'm Brian Belansky. Tristan Parker is here with me this weekend, getting ready to do our next race. It is our Formula cars and our prototypes as well, and One Club Sports 2000. Let's go through our starting lineup here as our pace lap has begun. Starting in the, I guess it would be the 7th row, Andy Chan. Then we got our 6th row is going to be Robert Kazan, and next to him, Alexander Kornfeld. Next row, Lars Jensen and William Sturgeon. Both of those cars are FX cars. Then we've got in the 4th row, it's going to be Christian Okpisch. I can't say it. I'm sorry, Christian. And James Lawley. Then we have in the 3rd row, we've got Dimitri Pistiolaco and CJ Craig. Our 2nd row is Larry Schnurr and Joseph Moran. And then our front row, Jay Horek in the number 37 car from Mesa, Arizona. And our pole sitter in car number 2 in an F3 car. This is a 2021 Ligier from Courtenay, British Columbia, Nicole Havadra. That is your starting lineup here for race group number 4 as we get ready to get going here. Second to last race of the weekend, a 30-minute race. And we look forward to bringing it to you here. This is our one of our bigger fields of the day. We've got ourselves 13 cars today. This group put on a really great show yesterday, I should say. So look real forward to bringing that to you today as well. You can see the pace car here getting ready to come through, or they've just come through Riverside and heading up towards Phil Hill with the field in tow. Like I said, this will be our second to last race of the weekend. Still ahead, Spec Miata, our final race of the weekend. So these should be two of our better shows. Both these groups typically very entertaining. So we look forward to these last 2 races of the day. Big thanks to our workers who are working outside, our volunteers. They are out in the heat these days. Really hot yesterday, up into the 90s. I'm not sure if we got to the 90s yet today. 86 degrees right now is what it looks like. This is positively pleasant compared to what we had yesterday. But still pretty toasty out here. So we will keep an eye on all of that. And these Formula cars sometimes do not like these hot temperatures on these slick tires, but they're pretty good at dealing with all the different conditions out here. And we do race a lot in the heat, so these folks know what is the deal. Again, as I said, we have 30-minute races here this weekend. Not going by laps, just going by time. Our last race was waved off by the starter. Didn't like the way things were looking when they came onto the front straight. We will see what happens on this one. Here comes our pace car onto the pit lane, and our cars onto the main straight, looking to see if we're going to get a green flag. And there is the green flag in the air. 30 minutes of racing. Our car is heading now down towards that first corner. Once we switch to our next camera, you will see if there is a puff of dust. That means somebody did something they shouldn't have done. Hopefully that won't be the case. Got 2 cars already jumping out to the lead. Looks like most of the rest of the field is pretty good there coming through Sunrise. We will catch them now coming out of this corner and heading up toward right into our living rooms here at Cotton Corners. You've got 2 cars out for the lead. One of them making a little move there. And then you've got a next group of cars. This red Formula car that you're seeing going through right now, that car's already passed a couple of cars early on this first lap. And they are just motoring right by there. We'll get a running order here when they come by the start-finish line for the first time. These are our fastest cars out here this weekend, these winged Formula cars and prototypes. The second fastest group is our big bore group, but we didn't have a ton of those cars here this weekend. So this is, if you like freaky fast, this is the group for you to watch. I do believe that is Nicole Havadra, who's broken out to an early lead here already in that F3 Leger. I will know for certain here, though, when she comes by the next time, the whole group here. Oh, there is a puff of dust out there. That is not part of our. You know what that is? That's a dust devil, folks. That could be the farmer out there working his fields and kicking up a little bit of dust, but it looks like that's a little bit of a dust devil there. Off in the distance, you can see the cars heading towards the Star Mazda turn for the first time, and now right into our living rooms here as they come through the S's. First two cars have opened up what looks to me like about a 6 or 7 second lead early. Now our leaders onto the main straight for the first time. And like I thought, it is Nicole Vadra who is your race leader with a 151 on the first lap, not far behind Jay Horak. He was in second place, giving Nicole Vadra a whole bunch of trouble yesterday until he had a little oopsie and went off, went all the way back to the last car in the field, and then worked his way back up to 10th place before all was said and done. So he had a good show yesterday, despite the issues that he kind of caused for himself. Oh, big puff of smoke. That car, that's like our 5th or 6th place car, but they were able to keep their foot in it and keep going, and then everyone else has to drive through the dust. And here comes your leaders right there. There is, actually, I think leaders are already past me here. Leaders are so fast, I missed them. Love that.
There's a fast set of cars out there, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they are already in. And the first two cars have opened up a 6.4 second lead in one lap. So that is pretty impressive. They do not want to be worried about the cars behind them. And Jay Horak, though, he's got to get going, though, because if he doesn't hurry it up a little bit, the number 2 car is just going to walk away. It was already an 0.8 of a second lead at the first, as they came across the line the first time, Tristan. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be probably closer to a 1.5 seconds here. Oh, there is a big puff of dust.
Oh,
that car,
somebody's off.
That car kept in it, though, but really slowed down to collect themselves. There's going to be a momentum problem for him as he comes up the hill.
Did he spin and continue right there?
I don't
or did he just
know.
continue the entire time?
Well,
kind of hard to tell. I thought I saw a little flash of him spinning and continuing, but maybe that was just him powering through it.
Yeah. You have the benefit of the worker channel, so hopefully they'll tell you what happened there.
I am listening attentively. By the way, that gap has opened to about, what did you say it was?
I said 1.5 seconds. What is the gap?
You were bang on, 1.542. Well done.
It's not my first rodeo, people.
Really, really well done. Yeah, 1.5 second gap opened up right there. 148.326 for Nicole Vadra coming around. That said, Jay Horak is going up at his fastest time as well.
Yeah.
So everybody putting on the speed right there, and it's great to see these formula cars, this big open wheel division, being this big. 14 cars. This is a rarity. It's normally not this many.
Well, and you know, at the risk of putting the announcer's curse on that 2 car, Nicole Vadra is trying to sweep the weekend. She had the pole yesterday, won the race. She's got the pole today. She wins the race. That is the big grand slam here. I think I've just termed something. When you win the pole in both races, we're going to call that the Buttonwillow Grand Slam.
Sure, I like it. I was going to say, I don't think there's actually is a term for it.
Well, now I've got it.
You can claim that for your own.
And she went purple last time by, too. And I think she had the fast race lap of every session, too.
Yesterday as well, if I remember correctly, she was the fastest. She's been putting up a really good performance this weekend, actually.
Yeah.
So happy to see it in action here today.
No question at all. And there she is coming right at us there with 25 minutes to go. We'll see what the gap is now. I'm not going to make a guess because I'm perfect now for the day. I'm not going to make another guess here.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, her qualifying time, the best one she mustered from the 2 days combined for today, was a 146.223.
Yeah.
Which is a good 1.2-ish seconds ahead of her nearest competitor, which is Jay Horak. So It's a hell of a drive right there. That Ligier JSF3 is a beast of a machine. One of the newest cars out on the track as well. It's a 2021 model, I believe. Right. There's the 2022 Ligier out there, too. That's Larry Schnurr, who's currently sitting in 3rd place. But, yeah, it's a nice vehicle. It really is. So
and a high, very fast in the hands of a capable driver, as you would expect from, I mean, all of the cars in this division. A lot of Formula Mazdas out there. And then, of course, I can't not mention, I mentioned it yesterday, my absolute favorite is just Andy Chan, who I think is in 13th right now, but is doing his own thing down in P2. His car is just, the make is just radical.
That's right. That's right. Havadra's now opened up a 2.8 second lead. These F3 cars, by the way, folks, and the F4 cars that are in this race, they're all FIA spec cars, so they're eligible to run in the F4 and F3 America's Pro Series, and I'm sure that's what a lot of these cars would do on a weekend when there is one of those races. But it looks like we got lucky. No pro race this weekend, so they all came out here to work on their craft.
Indeed. Why not take advantage of it and get used to it? Long track, too, so a good amount of ample time in the car. It really gets you familiarized with the beast and bring it up. And I was going to note 1:47 second time on the third lap for Nicole Havadra. Havadra, never going to get that name right, and I feel terrible about it. But a 1:47 is really quite fast. We're talking about, again, the longest track configuration available at Buttonwillow. And that is no small speed out there to cover 3 miles of road racing in 1 minute and 47 seconds.
So if you see this 3-car pack here that I'm starting to follow just a little bit, that is CJ Ray, Dmitry Pistiolaco, and Christian Akpish. That is the closest battle on the track right now. Less than a second covered those 3 cars when they came by the last time. Now it's a little bigger of a gap, but not by much. But that's definitely the closest battle on the racetrack at this moment.
And yesterday they were a very close group as well. Pistiolaco and Akpish in particular, the two of them were back and forth for a lot of the race, very close to one another. Lawley, who's the name that you'll see a little bit further back, was involved in a lot of that as well. And CJ Ray in that mix. So all of these drivers, honestly, they're all very talented. Larry Schnurr did a great job yesterday of battling up to I believe it was a second place finish. He's got a 16-second gap between himself and Jay Horak here today, so I don't know that he's going to be able to make it up this time. Instead, though, he's got to worry a little bit about Joseph Moran, who's kind of on the tail end of him. Now, Joseph Moran also had a spectacular race yesterday. He really battled very far forward in the order as well. I think he was basically competing for that second or third place spot in the only P1 car on the field. So that's another kind of competition to keep an eye on right there. The number 3 of Larry Schnurr versus the number 7 of Joseph Moran, but another very fast lap from Nicole Havadra at the top, 1:47.836.
And the gap widens between her and Jay Horak, 5.8 seconds. And that is what she definitely wants to do, is just get that gap open so that for the last half of this race, she can kind of coast to the finish. That's the goal. And she is clicking off fast laps and making it happen at the moment.
Right. Unfortunately, because it's time, not laps, you do have to really take into consideration, the full course of the race. So if she does want to build up kind of a buffer, basically, to allow her to go a little bit slower, I think she's going to have to put up maybe 1 or 2 more, maybe even 3, if we're being honest, laps at that kind of speed, because I think giving the opportunity, Jay Horak will 100% blast ahead. So something to keep an eye on. It sounds like number 63, that's Lars Jensen, who's deeper down in the order, had a little bit of a hiccup right there. Spun and continued, but right back into the mix. Obviously, getting past a little bit there. Alexander Kornfeld and William Sturgeon both taking advantage of Lars Jensen's error to climb a couple of positions right there.
Back to picking up our race leader here. That was Havadra and Horak, who had just come through our screen there, and you'll see them heading off into the distance here. They'll come out from behind the. Well, you know what? They're so fast they were well beyond. There is Nicole Havadra there. Next car through is going to be Jay Horak.
Yeah, and you can just see comparatively to some of our other groups how fast these cars go. Big group, too. A lot of support. I just came up the tower a few minutes ago, and there were a lot of people out there, a lot of crews, headsets in hand, watching, listening, talking, communicating.
So some very, very serious people, some serious spectators out there having a look.
You can see out in the distance, kind of dissipate a little bit, but there's it looks like there's two dust devils working out there.
Yeah.
And if you look to the right of the starter stand, you can see one of our banners. It was just blowing really heavy, and now it stopped, of course.
There was a massive dust devil earlier today that broke up just before the races started over in that general direction. One of the biggest I've ever seen. Honestly, it was huge.
Yeah.
I took a picture of it. I was like, wow. You do get them out in the Central Valley, and I mean, obviously, you've seen a fair amount of dust kicked out on the track here, so you have an idea of how dusty it is out there. And I mean, admittedly, that's always a bit of a problem. That dust gets everywhere. It gets in these cars. It gets up in this booth. It gets all over the place. And one of the things that a lot of these cars struggle with is when they do have these off and ons or they spin and continue, you got to be very careful that you don't suck up, a bunch of dust into the intakes of these incredibly sensitive engines.
Right.
And create all sorts of problems. We haven't really seen that happen today, but I think it's always a risk. And we're a little fortunate out here in the sense that we're the good karma of all our heavy rain is that it's not quite as dry as it would be, but it's still dry enough that I think it could potentially be a bit problematic for some of these cars.
Well, and last time we were out there, I think you remember we were talking, it was green, and now you can see here we've got some of the brown coming back.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And we're fortunate because I've yet to see a haboob out here. And I'm waiting for one of those because we've got plenty of dust and plenty of wind.
Yeah, that would be something.
It would be something. It would be something.
I don't know that they teach haboob racing in most of the racing schools out here, but it would be certainly be a challenge.
Yeah. How do you set your car up for a haboob?
Yeah. What do I do if I'm in a haboob? That'll get your driving instructor to look at you sideways.
Right. Huh?
That's for sure.
What the what?
But yeah, it's not as windy as it was yesterday, actually. That's the other interesting thing as well. By the time that we were wrapping up our races, when some of our drivers were going towards the tail end, it really had picked up, noticeably so, from up here in the booth. And it is definitely windy out there. There are some banners flapping, but it's not quite as severe as it was. Like I said, everything today is just a little bit softer than it was yesterday. Not as hot, not as windy, not as hazy either. That's the other thing to keep in count. So I don't think there's not as much dust for what it's worth circling out there, percolating for these drivers to deal with. And here comes the rest of the group right here. Everybody maintaining a pretty good distance at the moment. There's not anything I would say is super close here at the top of the order. Alexander Kornfeld in the 00 car is trying to catch up with William Sturgeon in the 88 car. I do believe Alexander Kornfeld suffered a mishap yesterday. Might have been on and off. I don't remember the exact circumstances of it, but it was not a clean race for Kornfeld. Kornfeld actually will come across, but that gap has wide open now, 2.884 between him and William Sturgeon. So that's probably the end of the ambition, at least for now. And honestly, Brian, looking down the list here, there's really nobody in a position where they're being ultra competitive right now. Everybody's just kind of doing their thing.
Yeah, that's the truth. And what's also interesting is now the 2 car of Havadra is starting to clip off some of the slower cars in this race. So she's going to have to work on navigating around some of that traffic, and that's helping. Is helped because she's got a little bit of a lead over Jay Horvath, but he does appear to be reeling in Havadra here just a little bit. He just turned his fastest lap of the race, a 1:48.9, which was almost a full second faster than the 2 cars. So I'm not quite sure if we're getting a situation with some slick tires. Well, they're all slick tires, but I mean some slippery tires on the 2 car, or whether it's just kind of managing the race at this point in time. But we'll keep a close look on that gap and see if it gets tighter here as we get into our final 14 minutes of this race.
Well, speaking of the final 14 minutes, we're about halfway through here, so we might as well provide you with a full field rundown brought to you by the Inside the SCCA podcast on the Racing Network in association with Porterfield Racing Brake Pad. So starting at the top of the order, your overall race leader, the number 2 car of Nicole Havadra. In second place, number 37, Jay Horak. In third, number 3, Larry Schnurr. In fourth, number 7, Joseph Moran. In fifth, number 75, CJ Ray. In sixth, number 29, Christian Ockfish, who's being chased by number 7, number 33, Dimitri Pistoliako. Behind them, James Lawley, William Sturgeon, Alexander Kornfeld, Lars Jensen, Robert Kazin, Andy Chan, and then Mike Bachman. And that is your halfway mark full field rundown.
Definitely an international flair in this race. A lot of names that A, are hard to pronounce, and B, we don't know very well. So
There's a strong Eastern European
does.
contingent.
it does feel that that's the case.
Horak, Okpish, Pistoliako.
Yeah.
Even honestly, Kazin deep in there as well. It's fun names. I like them.
I love it. The SCCA Cal Club Divisional Races brought to you by Porterfield Racing Brakes. They are our title sponsor, and we are very thankful that they are. If you need brake pads and anything for your race car that's brake related, and also they have a ton of other cool stuff that can help you make your race weekends easier. Get a hold of the folks at Porterfield Racing Brakes, porterfield-brakes.com, for all of your racing needs. 12 minutes, 50 seconds to go. And last time by, the gap was not closed up by Horak, so maybe it was just being very dainty to get around lap traffic, and the two cars slowed down just a bit to make sure that there were no issues, which would be a very smart thing to do. But whatever the case is, things are looking good for the last 12 and a half minutes here. And again, Nicole Vadra's trying to sweep the weekend. Won yesterday, had the pole, had the fast lap of the day. Today, has the pole, has the fast lap of the race. All she's got to do now is come home for the win, and that's going to be a big old sweep of the weekend. We're going to call that the Grand Slam.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out these drivers do know each other. They've all done Formula Pro, I'm pretty sure.
Most of them, yep.
Yeah, I think Nicole Havadra and Dimitri Pistoliako in respectively have both done very well this year in Formula Pro. I know that Jay Horak is a regular competitor there as well. So they're a good, well-known group of drivers, and we've seen that. I want to say that I've seen Dimitri Pistoliako out here before when I first started here, but he was in a big bore close wheel car at the time. But that might just be my imagination. I just seem to remember that from a while back, but who knows? Perhaps I'm just imagining things.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Makes for a good story.
It does, and I swear.
Let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story, okay?
Yeah, fair enough. On the socials, because I wanted to see if I could see a picture of him in the big bore car. I'm doing prospect research.
There you go.
Drivers up here.
There you
It's not
go.
normally the way it goes, I must admit. But a great set of drivers in this group, and a real pleasure to watch them at work out here on the track.
10 minutes to go. We're clicking off laps at about 140. That means, in my estimation, I'm thinking we got about 6 laps to go here before we get to what's going to be a short break. We're going to take a short break for our workers so they can get a little hydration going and all of that. And then we will come back for our final race of the day, the Spec Miata race, which tends to be a doozy, folks. So if you're waiting around for that, that is supposed to start right around 2:15 Pacific time. And we will be doing that and having a good time with those folks.
And if you enjoy this race and you think these are some good drivers, there's some more great drivers coming up after this, because our last group of the day is going to be the Spec Miatas. Always a very entertaining category, so don't go anywhere here. We're going to have a break after this race, and we'll be back with them, and they always promise to be very entertaining.
They usually put on a real boring race.
Yeah, the Spec Miatas, very tame. Traditionally,
Hashtag sarcasm.
Traditionally, they're the wildest one. Never the Spec Racer Fords are wilded out right there. Never been quite a tempo of the race that I was at back in February, where you weren't here, Brian, because that was
Back in January?
when it was pouring with rain.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen tow trucks. Tow trucks getting called like 6 times a race. So it's very, that was wild to see. Not quite the way it is this weekend. Very calm and tame out here by comparison.
Yeah, I talked with one of the emergency services guys yesterday, and I said, "How was your day?" And he goes, never even turned the truck on.
Yeah. I think we had one tow yesterday. Yep. I don't actually think we even had a tow. I think the guy just went out there.
Yeah, we had a tow go out to respond to 3 different cars in the same race, and by the time he got to each of the cars, the car had already left.
I think this is one of the most, of all the weekends that I've been to up here, I knocking on wood, of course.
That's right.
Yeah, obviously, but I do think it's one of the cleanest I've seen. Nobody's had anything really traumatic happen.
Well, let's hope it continues to go that way. 8.5 minutes left in this session. And Nicole Lavadra has now started to open up again the lead, which makes me think that the lead, the gap tightened merely because she was being very cautious getting through lap traffic, and which is a smart thing to do. No reason when you got 10-second lead, you don't have to push it to get around these cars.
Worth noting, too, that Jay Horak actually slowed down a fair bit as well. So I'm assuming that's a matter of Jay Horak also.
Yeah, now he's going around the cars that Havadra had to dispatch a lap or two earlier. So
definitely.
What comes around goes around.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to see how drivers navigate those back markers and how they kind of use them as sort of little impediments to their opponents, and that does happen a not infrequent amount.
Oh, no question. So there is a definite art to dealing with that kind of traffic. So, and look at how close you see some spectators here, and they're trying to get video of their family and friends out there, and looks like doing the old iPad action there, trying to get some video.
Don't do that. Not the taking photos. Take photos, just not there.
Oh no, it's fine.
You think so?
Absolutely.
I don't know. That makes me a little nervous.
Absolutely. No, that's fair game for spectators. That's where they're supposed to go. That's as long as you're on this side of the fence. If they jump on the other side, then I got to call.
Fair.
I got to call the A-team in to
security
to round them up.
The SCCA Gooden Squad.
That's right. Little B.A. Baracus action. All right, here we go. Here comes I got to find our leaders here. Where are we?
Like I did say, there's a fair crowd gathered for these guys, and a lot of crews taking a watch here as well, which is nice to see everybody kind of getting involved in the tenor of the race here. About 6.5 minutes left to go in the match.
You're watching
watching soccer.
Watching a little soccer earlier.
I've been
some Tottenberg, Tottenham,
Tottenham Hotspur. I've lost in the.
There's a nice little move for a pass going up Phil Hill. That's a good place to do that if you've got a little extra power under the bonnet there.
I was Joseph Moran moving around CJ Ray.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. Maybe. We'll get a confirmation. I know Joseph Moran did get around CJ Ray, if I checked correctly.
Well, and Moran is in that prototype car. He should be one of the faster cars out here. He's working his way up into a top 4 position, and he's got his eyes set on, he might have his eyes set on Larry Schnurr, but there is a big gap between Schnurr and Moran that's probably insurmountable at this point with a little under 6 minutes to go in the match. A 23-second gap, a 30-second gap between Schnurr and Moran here. So, yeah, they're not going to get caught up there, but a good drive for Moran to work up into the top 4 here.
Yeah, Moran, like I said yesterday, if I remember correctly, raced very well as well in that prototype. So, a very competent driver. It's a Penton 2019 in Norma. So, interesting, fun car. A lot of fun cars in this category, admittedly, but it is always cool to see those prototype cars in the mix.
Well, and that Joe Moran in that car has been, I believe, to the runoffs the last couple of years. So he knows how to get that car around here fast and is always in the mix here. 4 minutes, 44 seconds to go, and looks like my clock's pretty close to race time. It's not official time, but close enough. Here comes trying to pick up our leader again here. Just putting on a clinic now, a 12-second lead. There is our leader coming right at us here on the front straight. 12-second lead now over Jay Horak. I think it's a little combination of she's putting on a show, and Jay Horak knows he can't catch her, so no real reason to really push the car at this minute. And looks like she's slowing down just a little bit too, knowing she's got a big lead with 4 minutes left here, just getting to the end of this race.
Yeah, Jay Horak there, 10.7 gap now, so he has made it up a little bit, but obviously with only about 4 minutes left in the race, there's no way that he can close that gap given the pacing of things being what they are. So, make of that what you will there. And really, honestly, Nicole Vadra just needs to drive this one out to completion. Very straightforward and very easy race win, as long as they don't put any of their wheels out of alignment and they just stay focused right there, because we have to be coming up to our last lap soon here as we get about under the 3-minute mark. We should be wrapping up. If not this lap, then the next lap for sure we still see the white flag.
Yeah, I definitely think we're working the third to last lap here because of the speed of these cars. They get a lot of laps in here. We're going to get to probably 16 or 17 laps, and nobody's gotten close to that today. So that is part of driving the fastest cars at the racetrack this weekend. Someday, man, I want to squeeze my ample tuchus into one of these cars.
Yeah, that'd be
go
fun.
out there. That would be fun. I think what I need to do is get my tuchus to be a little less ample.
You're not alone in that regard, I must admit. So, the first or the last, as it were. And there is the white flag being unsheathed, but is not yet waved. So we will, I think, be seeing that relatively soon.
Yeah. And some of these F4 cars and F3 cars have the halo that we're used to seeing in Formula One, which is kind of cool. That little extra safety feature, which has proven time and time again to be a really important piece of a race car. I think we'll start to see more and more of those out here, whether they are modified cars that have added a halo, or whether some of our Formula cars will start just being delivered with them. I think it's proven its weight here in gold. Our race leader right now coming through the dog leg, or the bus stop, I should say, and we will pick her up here as she comes into our view in just a few seconds here, and about a lap and a half to go for her. And this would be hers, the second car in our view here, as she comes in, passes one of I think that's our Club Sports 2000 car that she was coming right up on. But she slowed down, no reason to catch that car off and surprise them. Plenty of time to go here and no real challenge. So we will see by the time she gets to us here through the S's, she'll have gotten past that car without any issues. And as you'll see, with a minute left on the clock, it'll be perfect timing for the white flag to come out. There she is, Nicole Havadra. She's just about, I would say, about 4 miles, maybe 3.5 miles from winning another race here at Buttonwillow.
Yep, last lap here to go. Nicole Havadra should wrap this one up easy peasy.
Yep, there she is, past the start line, 3.1 miles to the finish line, and that black and white flag that means another big trophy for the trophy case.
It sure does. And it should be a straightforward matter of collecting it. I'd be surprised, but I mean,
still got to finish the last lap.
I was just gonna say, not always a guarantee, but it should not be too hard.
She goes through Cotton Corners for the last time. And you can see that next car right there is the number 37 car of Jay Horak, trying to hunt her down, but I don't think that's going to be in the cards today. But I got to tell you, Jay Horak was up in second place yesterday, fell all the way back to last place, made it up to 10th place before the checkered flag. So while that was a great run, he will be very much happier coming in second than coming in 10th.
Yeah, and a spectacular driver in and of his own right as well. He did such a good job yesterday battling back into it with his unfortunate circumstances. Another one of the Formula Pro guys out here as well. So talented indeed. Just waiting now for our leader to finish it off. Checkered flag is coming out and ready to go and should be about near the conclusion of this.
Yeah, there is that number 2 car off in the distance, working through the S's right now. There she comes. That is Nicole Havadra for the last time right here. Next time you see her, the checkered flag will be in the air. Here it comes.
There it goes.
There it is. Checkered flag is out. There she is, coming out on the left-hand side there, coming close to pit wall to salute her crew. And there is a race win for a perfect weekend. Fast lap on both weekends for both days, pole position both days, and race win on both days. That is how you'll want to get it done, folks. Let's go through. I don't think there'll be too many possible changes here, so let's do our full field rundown, and then we will take a break. We've got about a 10-minute break before our next race, but let's figure out what happened here.
Starting at the top of the order, your overall race winner with the Buttonwillow Grand Slam, number 2, Nicole Havadra. In second place, number 37, Jay Horak. In third place, number 3, Larry Schnurr. In fourth place, number 7, Joseph Moran. In fifth, number 29, Christian Okpish. In sixth place, number 33, Dimitri Pistoliako. In seventh, number 75, CJ Ray. Behind him, William Sturgeon, James Lawley, Alexander Kornfeld, Lars Jensen, Robert Kazin, Andy Chan, and Mike Bachman.
I think I'm going to call it the Super 6.
Super 6.
The pole, the fast lap, and the win 2 days.
There you go.
That's our Super 6.
Super 6 here at Buttonwillow.
All right, congratulations, Nicole Havadra. We're going to take a break. We got about a 10-minute break so our workers can get off their feet and get some water, and then we'll come back for our final race of the day. Spec Miata and all the other Miatas. That's up next. Stay with us, folks. It is time for our final race of the weekend, Spec Miatas. Spec MX-5 and SMT. I think we've got a couple of those in here possibly. Or is it just all Spec Miatas? I'm not sure, but there's a lot of Miatas out there. I'm Brian Volansky. Tristan Parker is here. Our final race of the Cal Club SCCA Divisional races for this weekend. Brought to you by Porterfield Racing Brakes. Time for our starting lineup. Tristan, take it away.
All right. Starting at the bottom of the pack in 14th overall, number 153, James Cook from Bakersfield, California. In 13th, number 38, Carl Yonk from Cardiff by the Sea. In 12th, number 93, Jorge Diaz from Chandler, Arizona. Alongside him, number 69, Joseph Bogard from San Diego, California. Next to him, number 11, or I should say number 10, number 75, David Mitchell from Yucaipa, California. In 9th, number 80, Giorgio Perangielli from Agoro Hills, California. In 8th, number 74, Gabriel Estrada Jr. from El Cajon, California. In 7th, Alan Lukehart IV from Corona, California. In 6th, number 10, Rocco Ruzic from Humboldt, Texas. Alongside him, number 89, Clement Lee from San Diego, California. In 4th, number 35, Evan Jacobs from Encino, California. Next to him, number 98, David Varco from Bonito, California. In second place, number 2, Austin Varco, Bonita, California. And then starting it all off, in first place, your pole sitter, number 3, Ren Messenger from Bedford, New York.
Cool story in this group coming at us right now is our pace car. Driving our pace car is Gabe Estrada Sr. Gabe Estrada Jr. starts 8th in the same race, which I think is just kind of a cool father-son moment.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice. The two of them right back to back with one another.
I talked to Gabe Jr. yesterday after getting out of the car. He was part of our charity event, and he's like, man, it was hot out there. He started, he said the track was really, really slick. And speaking of really, really slick, there's been kind of a gentleman's agreement this weekend. Almost all of these cars are racing this weekend. None of them used a fresh set of tires for this weekend, which means it's possible that by today's race, they're going to have some really slick moments out there, which could make for some either fantastic driving or some treachery. And either way, we're going to have fun watching it.
Yeah, for sure. And looking forward to seeing what these cars can kind of produce here for us. Always an entertaining group and a group of talented drivers as well. And a lot of competition here amongst these guys. They all very much know each other, all very much trying to compete. It was a good race yesterday. I expect it's going to be a good race today as well.
All right, here comes your field. This is through the S's. Next time you see them, they'll be on the front straight. And Tracy Kane, as our starter, she will decide whether she likes what she sees, and if she does, we will get ourselves a start here. A 30-minute race. It'll be our final race of the weekend, and we are looking forward to this one, folks. There is our pace car. Gabe Estrada Sr. pulls onto pit lane. Now the pole sitter takes the cars down, and no start. Not exactly sure what was seen. We'll find out in a second. But I do see lots of weird ordering here in the back of this field. So I'm sure that is what the situation was. They just didn't like what they saw. And also it's possible that somebody started racing too soon, which is often the case. And we'll get some word from the start stand. The clock starts when this happens, so our 30-minute clock is underway here. And they will do one more pace lap. Hopefully they will sort themselves out, come around this time. And second wave off of the day. We don't normally get too many of those, Tristan, but we got 2 today.
We did get 2. Unfortunate. The tow truck's heading out there right now, so I think we maybe lost a car somewhere in the mix.
Oh, could that be what it is?
And that, I think, is why we did not get that green flag to start. One of the drivers on the pace lap might have had mechanical errors right there.
Oh, that stinks.
So they're sending a car around to hopefully either get him underway or get him picked up.
Well, let's take this opportunity to let people know that our next race weekend out here, and it'll be on the Racing Network, is October 14th and 15th. And that is here at Buttonwillow Raceway Park. We'll have all the racing for you live. It's possible, hopeful, very, very hopeful, that we might be on our new racetrack for that weekend. No official word. Just let me make this perfectly clear. I have not been told anything from the powers to be. But I do know they're working feverishly over there, and if we can get it on, I know they want to get this track open as soon as possible. So I'm crossing my fingers and my toes, and I'm hopeful that we'll be out there. If not, we'll be here at the regular Buttonwillow Raceway Park doing it again. So.
Indeed, we will be, and hopefully everything is kind of sorted out there amongst that pack, and they've got the car that was on the track off, and we'll get a green flag to start here on the next go-round, so we can get the final race of the day underway.
So did we hear, was the wave off because of the tow truck?
I did not get a clear
Okay. I'm
clear
just
read
curious.
on this. I think it was almost certainly because of the tow.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And it was, who was it that we had to unfortunately see towed off there? It's Evan Jacobs in the number 35.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Evan Jacobs is one of our front runners typically, and he came in third or fourth yesterday because he and Austin Varco were battling for third at the end of that race. They were actually the best battle on the racetrack for the last half of the race yesterday. All right, well, our pole sitter is Austin Varco. He had a great charity event. Austin has autism, and he does a lot of work with his racing to bring awareness for autism as well. And he had a charity event. A bunch of kids here from the Kern County Autism Center. I'm sure that's not the right name for the group. It is the Kern Autism Network. And they had a bunch of drivers with their cars and kids looking at the cars and sitting at the cars and signing autographs and eating popcorn and burgers, and really good time. Big kudos to Austin for putting that event on.
Yeah, it was a lovely little event right there. Lights are out on the pace car now, so hopefully we should see them come around. The green flag is in the starter's hand. Tow truck is clear. Everything's clear. We should be able to get this race underway, which is that slightly delayed start.
All right. And the clock has started here, so this will, lop off about 5 minutes from the race by doing it this way. But better to be safe than sorry here. Get that car cleared, and we get these guys lined up again. And all right, you can see the tow truck. You can see the cars coming on. Still looking for the green flag, and we're going to get it here. Here comes our start. And lots of cars fanning out, several wide here, going down the front straight. I see 3 wide, and we'll see if they make it out the other side without any issues. Usually when it happens, we see a big puff of dust, but we'll keep an eye on that. Austin Varco takes the early lead here. That does look like it might be Clement Lee right behind him.
Yeah, definitely some shift-ups almost immediately. Austin Varco, Ren Messenger, Rocco Ruzick there taking those lead spots early on, but still plenty of race left to run. Clement Lee raced very well yesterday, as did David Varco.
Yep.
It was very close throughout, and you can see actually just by how close these times were coming across the starting line, they were very tight in that formation. We would expect them as this race kind of goes on to maintain a lot of that formation. It's one of the sort of hallmark traits of the Spec Miatas is they all stay pretty tight on one another throughout. And as they come actually down through the bus stop on their first go round it, they are in fact really hugging one another. Not a lot of separation. Slowly but surely, it does seem like the front couple of cars, maybe the front 2 or 3, are starting to get a lot of spacing. But with the Spec Miatas, it tends to change very quickly. You mentioned the tires already, Brian. All stuff that I think is really going to contribute to a very fast shifting back and forth across the boards.
We do have those first couple cars, the first 3 cars, have already gapped a really nice pack of 4 or 5 cars that are battling for 4th place right now. And as you said, very appropriately, very kind of quintessential Spec Miata racing here early on. And these are cars that really benefit from the draft, especially on some of these longer, faster bits. And if you lose that draft too soon, you can get caught out very quickly. Second and third place now starting to work together with that draft to try to catch Austin Varco. And then you've got 4th through 7th or 8th there also working together. The second place and third place car realizing that if they don't get their stuff in gear here, Austin Varco can just drive away with this thing. And there's a big puff of smoke or puff of dust there. and which is not uncommon here, coming out of that sunset corner there for them to put a wheel off. So, and then here comes your leaders again, about a 6-7 car lengths lead for Austin Varco over Rocco Ruzick and Clement Lee. And then I think that's the next place car is David Varco. That's Austin's dad, the red car, number 98, followed real closely by Ren Messenger and Alan Lukart IV. Second and third place of Ruzick and Lee, doing a nice job of not letting Varco check out front. That is the smart thing to do.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to give him that opportunity.
No, not if they can help it.
Not if they can help it, exactly. They're going to keep a pretty close rein there on the backside of Austin Varco as much as possible. Again, Rocco Ruzick, Clement Lee, they're competitors, right? They're never going to let this go easy. A little bit of a kick up of dust there on the exit of the bus stop. We've been seeing that all weekend long. As both Clement Lee and Rocco Ruzick are closing on Austin Varco, you do have to wonder, are they going to kind of work together here? Or are they going to try and get past one another?
Well, the bigger lead they have over fourth place, the less they have to work together. Oh, there's a big puff of dust there coming out of Riverside, but that car kept it right in, and I believe that was Alan Lukart IV, and didn't even lift, kept it going there. Last lap, Varco put his went purple with a 2:16.164, a full half second faster than the cars behind him. It does look like, though, those cars have started to push it a little harder to make sure he doesn't drive away. Here they come through the Star Mazda turn and into the S's. It is still Varco, I believe, still Ruzick and Lee in second and third. And then you've got David Varco and Ren Messenger in fourth and fifth.
Looks like one car into the pits right there. That might actually be 3-5. So Evan Jacobs, who is a couple laps down, and he might actually be rejoining this race to see if he can get back in it. I mean, he's obviously not going to place, but he will get the participation. Coming across the line right there, Clement Lee setting the fastest lap so far of the group, 2:14.649, 0.098, the gap between him and Rocco Ruzick in front of him.
And it's important to get back out for someone like Evan Jacobs and get to the point where they're going to get those at least half laps to be considered a finisher here, because a lot of our championships you have to qualify for them, and qualifying is a combination of having enough points, but also participating in enough races. And you're not considered a finisher if you don't get half distance. So definitely early enough with 20 minutes left. If he can stay on the track for the rest of the race, he'll get to that half distance. You're right, he won't finish in the top 10 probably, or in the top 15. He'll probably finish last, but at least he'll be classified as a finisher. Probably should start talking about it our next race, Tristan. The points right now in our division, we'll pull those all up so we kind of have an idea of who is vying for what and where. And it does look like second and third place, Ruzick and Lee are right there with Varco, not giving him a chance to breathe at all.
Yeah, not really giving him a lot of room and trying to keep him honest there and in the race, and I think they're going to succeed at that. I mean, we're about a third of the way in here, and Austin Varco has not been able to open up more than a half-second gap between him and Rocco Ruzick. So that's something he's going to need to keep an eye on. David Varco obviously trying to catch up right there, but still 5.6 seconds behind Clement Lee, and he's got to worry about Ren Messenger and Alan Lukart, so another kind of tight pack just behind that leading group.
Well, and Clement Lee just turned a fast lap last lap with a 2:14.6, so they are getting it done here. Our temperatures here this weekend at the moment, 88 degrees, which was the forecast high for the day. There's our leaders again coming through nose to tail, pretty much right there. You could cover those three cars with an Amish quilt right now.
I think Rocco Ruzick was genuinely considering a pass there at the tail end of the straightaway past the tower here, but held off on it at the last second, kind of slipped back into line behind Austin Varco. Definitely thinking about it, though.
Yeah, frankly, the best thing these three cars can do is just what they are doing. keep pulling away from the fourth place car there and not worry too much. And that car that's fourth place on track is not the fourth place car. That's Evan Jacobs. He is many laps down, and that's actually good news for the cars behind him, because bad news for the cars behind him, because they're going to have to work their way past Evan Jacobs here to get to the leaders. So it's good news for the leaders, not so good news for the cars behind the leaders.
Well, just taking a quick look across the board here, seeing if there's anything interesting sort of building up towards the back. And I mean, again, the spec Miatas, they all do run a little close to each other. Bogard, David Mitchell, Jorge Diaz, and Perangielli down there at the bottom. They're all going pretty close to one another right now. But again, all eyes, I think, on that top three group, Varco, Ruzick, and Lee, who are kind of stealing the show right now, and in a very close race there to see if any one of them can sort of take that top spot. Varco obviously has a little bit of an advantage, but he is running at the front, so he's not going to have the support of another car. He's not going to be able to build up that much speed in that sense, and that's something he's definitely going to need to watch out for there as the race continues.
No question. And coming up on 17 minutes to go here, this is shaping up to be one of kind of a colossal battle here for the lead. I really hope these three cars can stay together for the next 10 minutes. And now one of them pops out, the two cars actually in second and third, trying to draft right past Austin Varco here. We're going to get to see if they get the job done here as they come out of Sunrise, and definitely Rocco Ruzick's in front, but Austin Varco battles back as they come down towards the A section, and it looks as though he has been able to stay in front. Now one of those black cars does look like it's on the point. I'm going to guess that's Rocco Ruzick here. And now Clement Lee is trying to go on the outside going into Cotton Corners. I'm not certain that is the most beneficial or the most recommended way to get around there.
It was very close heading into Sunrise. Very close. Rocco Ruzick and Clement Lee on the outside edge. It was a great effort there by Austin Varco to battle back forward, but now the tables have turned. It does look like Rocco Ruzick did get around Austin Varco down probably by Cotton Corners and is now in that first place position. He's being chased by Austin Varco, and who is now sandwiched between Ruzick and Lee.
Now you'll see your leaders here. A new leader. Pretty certain that is Rocco Ruzick. And then Austin Varco becomes a sandwich now between the Ruzick and Clement Lee. There they are up through Phil Hill. Your third place car is Ren Messenger, and several cars back. This is him here. The third car on the track, like I said earlier, is Evan Jacobs. He is one of the faster drivers out here, but he had some sort of a mechanical problem on the pace lap, and they had to come into the pit. So he is now operating, it looks like 3 laps down, but he'll be able to keep the car on the track now for the rest of this event, hopefully, and become a finisher. Now Austin Varco is now back into third place. So Clement Lee has also worked his way around. We'll know in just a minute whether it's Lee or Ruzick here at the point. I'm pretty certain it's Rocco Ruzick, then Clement Lee, and Austin Varco. Stay with me, and we'll know in a second. As I suspected, Ruzick, Lee, Varco, those are your leaders. Ren Messenger comes by 4.5 seconds back. So that even that just little bit of raciness by the three drivers up front has allowed Ren Messenger to get about a second and a half caught up, and he also helped by the fact that he just ran the fastest lap in the race. Ren Messenger just ran a 2:13.5, and your race leaders ran a 2:16 last lap. So that is a good way to get caught up by running 3 seconds a lap faster than the leaders.
Well, there you go.
So we're at the halfway point. Let's do our full field mid-race rundown here. Rocco Ruzick is your leader. Clement Lee second. Austin Varco third. Ren Messenger fourth, followed by David Varco in fifth. Then you've got Alan Lukert the fourth. Gabe Estrada Jr., Joseph Bogard in 8th, Sergio Pierangeli 9th, then Jorge Diaz. Carl Yonk is 11th, David Mitchell 12th, James Cook 13th, and in 14th, several laps down, is Evan Jacobs. That is your full field rundown, brought to you by the Inside the SCCA podcast on the Racing Network and the Racing Wire Podcast Network, and also our SCCA Cal Club Divisional races, brought to you by Porterfield Races. They are our title sponsor, Porterfield Brakes. If you need race brakes and anything else really for working your race car and making it go faster, they are a place you should check out. Lots of good stuff, and we really appreciate their help this weekend and all of our weekends here. Go to Porterfield-Brakes.com, Porterfield-Brakes.com for all of your needs. 13 laps to go here, Tristan. What do you think is the strategy, or is there no strategy at the moment?
Well, I mean, you've got about 12 minutes left in the race, right? So if you're sitting in the position of Austin Varco, you obviously want to get back into this. So I think you have to wait for whenever Clement Lee tries to make their move, because presumably Clement Lee will try to make a move on Rocco Ruzic at some point in time here over the course of this. I think it's just a matter of kind of timing your pass, right? And it's worth pointing out, Rocco Ruzic and Clement Lee, they're still playing off of each other very much. So there's got to be a moment here where Clement Lee's just kind of zip by Rocco Ruzic. And I think when that happens, if you're sitting in the position of Austin Varco, you sort of shoot forward right there and get into the mix. And that's what I would be thinking if I was in his position right now, is there's going to come a time where you can make this happen.
Well, and Varco needs to not let these two cars get away too far, because that will become very problematic here. If he gets out of touch, there'll just be no chance to catch up. And right now, with a 1 second lead, which I think is a little bit wider than that even now, he is in danger of losing contact with your leaders, and that would be a bad thing altogether. And if those two guys keep working together, the gap's just going to get wider and wider. The other question is, with the tires we talked about earlier, have Austin's tires started to fall off quicker, and will the other two guys up front, will their tires start to fall off? And if that happens, will that give Austin Varco an opportunity later in the race? Although we've only got 11 minutes to go, so we're getting to later in the race right now to make up the gap a little bit later if those guys start working their tires too hard here. I know. It's been a long weekend of racing. We're on our final race of the weekend. And I got to tell you, I love doing this, but I am worn out by Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it does tend to get to you a little bit. But, I mean, it's so close right now between these three cars at the top. I'm just curious when Clement Lee, who's still drafting very hard off the back of Rocco Ruzic, when that move is going to come. Because he's got 10 minutes now. Excuse me. He's going to have to play this at some point in time. And I'm just curious when that's going to be. Well, this might be it, actually. Clement Lee starting to power up here as they head down towards Sunrise. There's no way he's going to build up enough speed to make the pass right there. And he might have actually, on the very last stretch of Sunrise, really, or the very last stretch of the straightaway, really put the pedal on right there and just slipped in underneath Rocco Ruzic. But I can't quite confirm the numbers. I'm going to have to wait for them to come back into our quote-unquote visual range again in a minute.
And whatever the case may be, now there's a 3 or 4 car lengths lead between those two cars. That gap has widened just a little bit here. That widening gap is good news for Austin Varco. That could give him the opportunity to link back up with the second place car, and then both those cars can drive up to first place. But we'll watch to see how that plays out. But now there's a good 8 car lengths lead between first and second place. And Ruzic and Lee both just turned their fastest laps of the race here. So there's no slowing down here for those guys. But even with that gap, Varco's not really having an easy time of trying to catch back up here. So it looks like we've got a two-car battle for the lead. And as long as those guys don't have any problems or don't come together, it's going to be really hard for the 2 car to catch up at this point. And here comes your leaders through the S's. We'll get a good idea of which one is
And
which
so
when they cross
close,
the line.
man.
I know, it's crazy close. 8 minutes and 15 seconds to go. And there we are. Look at how close right now. It looks like they're even trying to think about doing another pass here. It was still Ruzick at the point, Clement Lee second. .104 is the gap between first and second when they came by this time.
Again, yeah, they're maintaining such a tight formation there between the two of them that honestly it's really hard to say when Clement Lee is going to make a move. I mean, he did try it, not this last lap, but the lap before. It didn't really work out. And then, of course, you do have Austin Varco, but I mean, that gap has opened up to about 2.8 seconds now, 2.87. So really not an easy opening for Austin Varco. He's going to need these two cars to kind of battle one another for him to get that open, and then they're just not really doing that. Clement Lee is just happy to sit behind Rocco Ruzick for as long as it takes here to make something happen.
Yeah, and I'm not certain how overheating works with these cars. That might have been another option where Lee was just putting the nose out to get a little fresh air in there. I don't think these cars have too many overheating problems, and we're not as hot nearly today as we were yesterday, and there weren't any real overheating issues yesterday either. So I think you're just kind of getting into the moment with 6 minutes and 45 seconds left to go here of coming up with the right strategy of determining when to make that pass. And if you don't have a whole lot more horsepower or talent than the driver in front of you, my theory is always the person who makes the last lap, the last pass wins. So if that means waiting until the final lap, you don't want to give this first place car a chance to come right back if you make that pass too early. Looking a little deeper into the field, there aren't really too many close battles right now. The closest battle is between 9th and 10th place, and that's 1.8 seconds. So it really makes sense to keep our eyes here at the front of the field there with Ruzick and Lee. And if you remember yesterday, do I remember correctly that Lee made the final pass on the final lap to take the lead yesterday from Rocco Ruzick?
Something very similar to that. Yeah, Clement Lee shot by him, I think, literally on the straightaway at the very last lap. So no doubt that's kind of lurking in the mind there of Rocco Ruzick. And again, Austin Varco, the gap just widening there. I think, unfortunately, we're getting to the point now where I'm not sure that Austin Varco is going to be able to make that one up. Also unfortunate, the fastest lap time was Ren Messenger, who had a 2:13.85. He's in the pit now. He's had to pit there at the very tail end of the race. So, I mean, the good news, I guess, for him is that if he does have to finish it up there, he can finish it up, okay. But it is unfortunate he is going behind the wall.
So his day is done, but he's a finisher because he did half of the laps here, which is good for him. And I concur with your thought process that Varco will not be able to just outright catch first and second place. But we've seen it before that when things and push comes to shove literally on the final lap, I can tell you I've seen first and second place take each other out and third place wave as they drive by for the win.
Yeah,
so I'm sure that that's the idea for Austin Varco right now. Don't make any mistakes, and if the two guys up front to get together, just be in enough closing distance to be able to do exactly that. And with 4.5 minutes to go, that has to be his thought process at the moment. You can see those two cars way off at the distance. Now, that is one of the two really good passing zones that you can see off in the distance going into Star Mazda. That is, I believe, where Clement Lee made the pass yesterday to take the win here. And I'm sure he remembers that. And I'm also sure Rocco Ruzick remembers that. And will get very defensive trying to protect the lead there going into the final laps of this race. Here are your leaders. 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go, which makes me think next time by will probably be our white flag lap here.
That's what I would assume too, Brian. And at the tail end, of course, Clement Lee goes for the pass. Austin Varco out of that competition. So really, Ruzick and Lee are the ones to watch right here. And they are still very close. Clement Lee may have gotten in the lead there, but as we saw them come through, it's a tiny gap between them.
Well, and Lee has taken the lead. The question is, did he take the lead a lap too soon? This is going to give Rocco Ruzick to pull a Clement Lee if he has the opportunity to do so. And here's the other question mark. Did Rocco Ruzick let Lee by easy so that he's in that second place slot going into the final lap so he can be the car to make the last pass on the last lap?
It's entirely possible he could have gamed it, I think, to that extent, and some drivers obviously would game it to that extent. That gap's not huge. It's bigger than what Clement Lee was maintaining. Clement Lee taking the bus stop turn a little wide right there, which kicked up a lot of dust on the outside edge, and that's just going to mean Rocco Ruzick has to speed up a little bit here to catch up with Clement Lee.
And they do have one slower car that both cars are going to have to negotiate here, and that could cause a problem, but it does look like that car really nicely pulled over. Lots of courtesy there, and that car's smart enough to understand that the leaders were coming through, and hopefully they'll be smart enough to also let Austin Varco through. It's usually really easy to let the first two cars through, but you don't know what the third-place car is. So really good job of minding the blue flags and the word from the flaggers and getting out of the way. Our starter is holding the white flag, so the next time by, it will be in the air, and then it'll be a 3.1-mile dash for a trophy here at Buttonwillow Raceway Park. And wow, look at the lead that Clement Lee has built up over the second-place car there of Rocco Ruzick. If Lee doesn't make a mistake, Tristan, I think this race is over.
Yeah, I agree with you right there as well.
Yeah, it is 1.2 seconds, and unless there is an issue with that car, it is 1.2 seconds is not a gap that's easy to catch up here over the last lap of this race.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from right there, and I do wonder. Rocco Ruzick 1.2. I mean, I think that's maybe doable. I think that's definitely in the hard category, though.
Yeah,
you're not going to make that. That's not going to be an easy run. I do think it is doable, but the way that Clement Lee has been driving has been pretty immaculate, all things considered here, Brian. That said, I'm watching the two of them right now, and we may even see this on our cameras as they come down, or they did come down. They are very close together. Rocco Ruzick has put on a ton of speed. Really gunned it going up into the grapevine to try and make up that distance. And I don't know, Brian, I'll be honest with you. I think he's setting up for a pass there as they come through the bus stop and up into the Riverside. He is absolutely slamming that Spec Miata to try and get around Clement Lee before this is over. He is in a position 100% where he could make a pass. Whether he can maintain that or whether he can do it cleanly, those are the questions that I think I would be asking, but you'll see them coming up on your screen, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. Look at how close he is on the backside.
Yeah, definitely not 1.2 seconds now. We're going to switch to this last camera, and you're going to see them way off in the distance on the left. They're going to come out right behind our pylon. There they are, heading down towards what is really the last best place to pass here at Buttonwillow, going into Star Mazda. It looks like it's widened just a tiny bit. And then there will be one last gasp effort, I'm sure, going into Sunrise here. And we will see what happens when those two cars come out of the final corner. And they are really close, but is he close enough to make a move? We're going to know in just a few seconds here. Waiting for them to come around. The starter has the checkered flag in hand. Here they come through. Unless there's a mistake, Clement Lee is going to win this one, I think. But we're going to see. There he is doing a little bit of weaving to try to break the draft. Did he make him? No. He did not get a chance to catch him. Rocco Ruzick is going to. So this is almost identical to what we had yesterday. Our finishing order yesterday was Clement Lee, Rocco Ruzick, Austin Varco. The podium is the same. The only difference is Evan Jacobs is not our fourth place car. What a fantastic race.
Yeah, it was a really, really good race there for those guys. Very much enjoyed watching them go at it, and well done by Clement Lee. I mean, honestly, genuinely played that so well.
All right, so let us do this. Let us do a full field rundown here for the final time this weekend. Then I've got a bunch of people to thank before we get out of here, so why don't you take it away, my friend, and we'll do this the last time.
All right, your full field rundown here for this, the last race of the weekend. In first place overall, number 89, Clement Lee. In second place, number 10, Rocco Ruzick. In third place, number 2, Austin Varco. In fourth, number 98, David Varco. In fifth, number 7, Alan Lukehart IV. In sixth, number 93, Jorge Diaz. In seventh, number 69, Joseph Bogard. And then behind him, Gabriel Estrada Jr., Giorgio Perangielli, Carl Yonk, David Mitchell, James Cook, and Evan Jacobs.
All right, want to thank the folks in the chat today. Brett Fitch, go Rocco. I wish I would have seen that sooner. I might have been able to send that out there quicker. But a bunch of people to thank. First of all, our volunteer workers out here, all the folks standing out in the heat all weekend long. We really appreciate everything you have done. Also, all the folks like us who are lucky enough to not stand out in the heat. Plenty of people here behind the scenes making the race happen. And a big thanks to everyone there. All the staff here at Buttonwillow does such a great job helping us out and getting us on the air and doing all of that. I appreciate all that they do. Also want to give a big thank you to our friends at Cal Club for giving us the opportunity to do this. And we enjoy coming out here and doing that. Can't get out of here without a big thank you to Porterfield Brakes. They are our presenting sponsor, and without their help, we would not be doing this weekend. Check them out for all of your racing brake needs and a bunch of other stuff, porterfield-brakes.com. And then I cannot leave here without thanking Tristan Parker.
Oh, my pleasure. Happy to be here for the races.
Any final thoughts before we head out?
Always a good time. Look forward to being back in October.
That is right. And speaking of October, let us show you what we got coming up here. Our next race weekend for Cal Club is here at Buttonwillow Raceway Park, October 14th to 15th. We will be live again on the Racing Network. If you want to be alerted to these races, please hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And every time we come out here live, you'll get an alert. That is going to do it from Buttonwillow Raceway Park. After a bunch of fun races this weekend, thank you, everyone. Have yourself a great summer. And we will be back here in the fall for racing. And also don't forget to stay with the Racing Network for all a bunch of podcasts that are all about racing, lots of them about the SCCA. This is the place to be for that. We have live podcasts on Tuesday and Wednesday and a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm Brian Belansky. He's Tristan Parker. We're out of here. Have yourself a great weekend. Drive home safe, everybody, and go play with cars.